was opening up. 58,409 people participated, and therefore then this was an overachievement in this area. We also then have a number of schools, hubs, and clubs provided. Number of schools, hubs, and clubs provided with equipment or attire. And this target was unaffected by the adjustments at 2,500, and we were able to achieve 2,824 more, translating to 5,324. Then the next target was a percentage of sport and recreation bodies meeting 50% or more of all prescribed charter transformation targets. As we have said before, and as we emphasize, transformation is not a choice in a country that comes from a painful history of division, racism, and a very brutal system that undermined one nation and preferred others over others. So transformation in sport and arts is not a choice. So here is a deliberate program dealing with the transformation in sport with the 19 priority codes of sport. And this, we are saying, we were able to achieve 68.4% as a target, 13 out of 19. So we have -1. Why this is the case is mainly because 3 of the target 19 federations failed to submit their data. And that is why then it is 13 out of 19. While the others, the Northwest is that the target was not adjusted, and we remained at this level where 19 of them had to comply fully. Honorable Chairperson, we then have a number of municipalities provided with technical money and management support. Target was 35, and 35 of them were indeed supported, and then there was no adjustment of this target. We then move to the next one, community gyms and children's parks constructed. It was interesting this morning to see on TV talking about diabetes, and a lot of COVID-19 issues were that people are suffering due to worse conditions of comorbidities. And therefore then this issue is about really community health, because a healthy body means healthy mind. It was important that we continue with these gyms and have this being constructed, and indeed 10 out of 10 were done as per the plan. Then number of heritage legacy projects implemented, as indicated in my preface, there were 2 that were intended to be implemented, and implementation of the 2 legacy projects are still underway. They are not yet completed. This target was adjusted from 3 to 2 as we did the revision, and then we could not achieve this as a result. There were a lot of delays in the implementation of Sarah Bartman due to contractual disputes and payments. And then the Nyogeni Cultural Precinct also had serious delays in finalizing the MOU from the side of the KZN Department of Arts and Culture, as this project is implemented by them through the DPWI in the province. This is now the procurement stage for the appointment of contractors was then adversely affected also by the COVID-19. Honorable Chairperson, I think we will then move to the last target, the number of provincial resistance and heritage liberation heritage routes developed and managed. The revised target was 3, and 2 provincial resistance and liberation heritage route sites were developed and managed. The Winnie Mandela Museum in Brantford has achieved practical completion. The O.R. Tambo Memorial Site also has achieved practical completion. So the target was adjusted from 9 to 3 due to the COVID situation.
Point of order.
Yes,
Can I call the...
Let the dogs bite.
Yes, it
Can
has
you
been
please switch off
working,
your
DG.
mic, Chair?
Yes. Please try to sort it, DG. It has been barking.
I thought they were from the side of the honorable chair. Now I realize it's my dogs. Sorry,
Let the dogs out.
I did sort mine. I did.
Oh, they too, Ninesinja, they too. Okay, I've noted that.
Maikhuleko.
we then move, Honorable Chairperson, to the percentage of COVID relief applications from athletes, coaches, and personnel being processed. This target was achieved. All applications in that sport fraternity submitted were processed. Can we move to the next one, please? On the issue of the number of learners in the National School Sport Championship per year, our target was 5,000, and none of these could be done because this target had to be removed because we realized it was practically going to be impossible. So during adjustment, this target was eliminated, not even revised. Program 3, Honorable Chairperson. Program 3 covers the following areas. One is the program on national language services. This is used to promote, please make it bigger. This is used to promote use and equal status of all official languages. This entails, is part and parcel of key transformation agenda to make sure that official languages, all of them, are promoted equally. And we do this by also providing the bursaries. But we also have translation and editing services that we provide in all official languages, including supporting provincial governments or any other government department, nationally or otherwise, who needs this service. But also we've got a very sophisticated effort to deal with human language technologies, where we also deal with the development of terminologies that addresses the languages that in the past we might not have been able to have those terminologies and the translation of dictionaries. And we work very closely with PESP. Cultural and creative industries development supports cultural and creative industries by developing strategies and by developing the strategies that we need to implement and develop these programs, supporting the sector organizations programs, but also we have international cooperation, and that is where we work with the other countries. Then we've got social cohesion and nation building, which implements the social cohesion strategy to try and bring unity among races in South Africa for a shared common destiny. Then we've got Mzansi Golden Economy, which seeks to create economic and job opportunities in the arts, culture, and heritage sector. This we do by including, among others, support to design and to develop audiences so that artists can have people and be able to make an income, stimulate demand, and increase market access and develop skills. Then also department does transfer funds to National Film and Video Foundation, as well as NHC. Can we move to the next slide, please? Can we move to the next slide, please?
Ulele. Ulele. M17.
Now, can we then proceed now? Now, Honorable Chairperson, here we are now presenting Program 3, Program 3, Honorable Chairperson, we've got under languages, the number of multi-year human technology projects. This target was not revised. 6 were planned to be done and 6 of them were financially supported. And then percentage of documents received and translated, we've always targeted 100%, and that is what we were able to do. And then we've got a number of bursaries awarded for the development of qualified language practitioners. This includes both undergraduate and postgraduate. And indeed, we were able to achieve that because we were able to award 486 against the target of 300. This is 186 more. This is mainly because as we work with the South African universities, some of them have got various costs and the pricing of the courses, and therefore then we are able, wherever the budget is allocated, it was intended for 5, but then the cost is less, then we're saying to that university, have a greater intake. That is really the reason behind the 186 more. And then if we move to the next target, is that we had the number of local and international market access platforms created or financially supported. Target was 6, and this was achieved. The number of capacity building projects, we had a target of 14. Unfortunately, we were able to only do 10, and this target was adjusted from that, and the annual cumulative adjusted target then could not be met because 2 of the capacity projects were only partially financially supported. And by this, we mean that a first tranche provided, but the second tranche could not be provided. And then the another 2 of the envisaged projects just could not be financially supported at all. And then the number of provincial community arts development programs, target was 9, we were able to do 8. This is mainly that the target could not be met here because one of the provinces, which is Western Cape, had not completed the implementation of its program. And it is anticipated that this program will be completed at the time by June 2021. Next, then the number of international engagements, 7 were planned, we were able to do 6 more, and 13 international engagements were then coordinated during this period. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, the number of moral regeneration movement projects financially supported, 5 moral regeneration movement projects were financially supported. However, of these 2 projects were implemented, and that is the anti-femicide campaign and the moral regeneration movement month. The 3 were not. And these are the youth dialogues, the ethical leadership projects, as well as the charter of positive values. And this was mainly because this needed face-to-face engagements, and this could not be then done due to COVID. Then the next target was in relation to the number of community conversations or dialogues held to foster social interaction. 10 community conversations were held. Number of youth focused arts, 3, and the 3 were done. Number of advocacy platforms on social cohesion, target was 15, 5 more were done. And these additional 5 platforms were as a result of opportunities that became available as soon as COVID, the levels had been adjusted lower, then we're able to do more. The next target is the social compact for social cohesion and nation building, that we had to have 2 monitoring reports for the year. However, social compact monitoring report was not yet compiled, and this target had to be adjusted, and the number of regulations that of COVID-19 delayed this exercise, but it requires a lot of engagement and consultation with the public before, and the key stakeholders who must take ownership of a social compact. So we are finalizing the social compact itself so that then we're able to have the reports available. And then the number of gender-based violence and femicide programs financially supported, the target was 1, and 1 gender-based violence program was indeed financially supported. Out of the 3 projects that were planned, this was not fully implemented. That is where the problem we had here. This is a new target that was introduced in the retabled APP. The target was not achieved as indicated. This was due to the delays that we had in our own planning internally as a department, and that then resulted in getting what we call budget item from Treasury quite late, because we submitted late due to delays internally in finalizing the processes. That is what happened here. Then the number of projects in the creative industry supported through the Mzansi Golden Economy Program, 12 was planned, 13 was then 13 projects in the industry, then were fully financially supported. And then the next target, can we move to the next slide? This target was revised to 100 in relation to artists being placed in schools. As indicated earlier in the preface, this could not be achieved. As we know that there were serious challenges in the school calendar on the issues of safety protocols, and the schools suspended the issue of anything that comes as an extra curricular to them. Hence, we could not implement this because the time available to school was to focus on co-curricular programs. Then the number of reports produced by SACCO, 16 of them were revised this target to 13. However, they were able, due to agency, to do assessments on impact of COVID, and that resulted in extra 4 being done. And then we were able to do 17. The next slide. Number of public awareness activations on the hashtag I'm the Flag campaign. We had planned 19 and they had to discontinue this target. Chairperson, we moved to program 4, which had 6 targets, and all the 6 targets were achieved. And these include, among others, the focal areas of heritage promotion. And this supports a variety of projects and initiatives in the field of heritage, such as the transformation of the heritage landscape through the conceptualization, but also just equipping and operationalizing legacy projects. This also talks to the resistance and liberation heritage route, the issue of the relocation of statues, the Bureau of Heraldry, which deals with our national symbols that need to be registered and all those things. And then, of course, conceptualization of the national flag, and then coordinates the National Orders Awards ceremony, as you saw them yesterday, conducted by His Excellency President Madamela Ramaphosa. And then National Archive Services acquires and preserves, manages and makes accessible records with enduring value. This is one of the key areas about the memory of the nation. Then the public library services, a nation without knowledge and information is doomed, is a doomed nation. So this is aimed at where we provide financial support and by transferring funds to the provinces. And this then enables provinces to build and construct new libraries, and as well as then hire personnel, and as well as purchase library materials, so that these are not white elephants. Transfer also to South African Geographical Names Council. This is an advisory body which facilitates and consults on the issues of name changes by consulting the communities, and then advise the minister so that the offensive names are removed, while the new names that reflect democratic values and accepted by communities, not imposed, are the new names for places. So what are the targets? The targets were that number of students awarded with bursaries. Also in the field of heritage will be 65. Again, here we were able to award 70 of these bursaries. I must indicate again, this is about ensuring that we've got the necessary knowledge and skills in the country about heritage issues. So it is important we also provide these bursaries for both under and postgrad students. Number of books documenting living human treasures drafted were able to achieve this, and these are the two human treasures. This is what we always regard as the downloading of knowledge and information that is special and is maintained and held by those elderly creatives with the unique knowledge of how their craft is done, so that this can then be shared with future generations. Because in African terminology, in African idiom, there is a saying in Tanzanian way that when an adult dies, the whole library burns. So it's important that then we download this information before they can unfortunately pass. So we did this with Ubaba Mkwako Enoch Mabiga, who deals with carving out of his own way. And then Mama Beauty Ngongo, who has special knowledge on weaving. Therefore, then we have a book called Weaving Wisdom into Art. Then we've got the bigger one on the monumental flag that we intend to install. This year, the target was to have a feasibility study, and this feasibility study has been completed and has been done and then submitted and signed off. And then this target was not adjusted and is part and parcel of the APP. The last two targets are the targets that relate to the number of heritage policies developed. That is, one of them was the repatriation policy, and this was achieved. The number of records digitized, the intention was to do 10. However, we're able to do 60 of these records so that they can be easily accessible. The 10 more records were as a consequence of the appointment of additional staff through the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, which assisted us to achieve more. And then the last one was a number of newly built libraries or modular libraries. Target was 12. 33 of the newly built and or modular libraries were supported financially. We don't build, as we indicated earlier, we transfer money to the provinces. So the reason for the increase is that there were those libraries that were financially supported but were not completed in the previous year. So over and above the 12, we ended up then being able to do these more because the province is able to complete the outstanding projects. Hence, we have 33 of those projects. Honorable Chairperson, workshop to advance knowledge on national symbols, including the flag. This target was discontinued. So was the National Archives infrastructure, the feasibility study was also discontinued. And then the gazettes on standardized geographical names, or this target was also discontinued. Honorable Chairperson, I think it is my honor and happiness that I then request my acting Chief Financial Officer to take the committee through finances of the department as at the end of March 2021 as audited. Over to you, Ms. Sibongile Mondile.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. I had shown my face. I'm not sure if I'm visible. That's me. May I
Yes,
move out of the...
Dark, see, it's dark.
Unfortunately, maybe it's the room where I'm sitting. I didn't turn the lights on. Sorry, honorable members. My name is Bongile Mondile. As the DG has said, I'll be taking you through the departmental financial report as at the end of March 2021, and these finances were audited by the AGSA as the AG had presented the outcome of the portfolio, including the department, where our financial statements received an unqualified audit report or audit opinion with findings. This report that I'll be taking you through, it will be one showing the departmental salary of the budget versus expenditure per program, per economic classification, and also budget versus expenditure per program and economic classification. We will be going through to the expenditure per program. This is the high level outcome or results of our budget versus expenditure. We had 4 programs in the department. Program 1, which is administration. Program 2, recreation, development and sport promotion. Program 3, arts, culture and promotion development. Program 4, heritage promotion and preservation. The final appropriation of the department, we had 5,310,738,000. That was the budget that we were working with to deliver the targets as DG has already presented. Program 1, the output from the budget of 493,553,000, the actual expenditure thereof, which translated to 98.3%, we had spent 485,287,000, which left us with an unspent amount of 8.2 million. That is in program 1. Program 2, RDSP, we had a budget of 1,055,949,000. We had spent out of this budget 982,787,000, which translates to 93.1%. The unspent funds in this program is 73 million. In program 3, ACPD, we had a budget of 1,599,737,000, and we had spent out of that budget 97.7%, which in rand value was 1,562,857,000, and we've got unspent fund of 36.8. In program 4, we had a total budget of 2.1 billion, 2,161,499,000, and we had spent 99.2% of that budget, which is 2,144,585,000, and the unspent funds for program 4 was 16.4 million at the end of program 1. In total, as a department, we had spent out of our budget of 5.3 billion, we had spent 5,175,516,000. The unspent fund under the column variance is 135.2 million. So in total, we had spent 97.5%. This is the summary of the total appropriation per economic classification. Here, our economic classification, we're talking of compensation of employees, goods and services, transfers to provinces and municipalities, that is our conditional grant, transfers to our entities, that is the agencies and accounts, transfers to NPIs, transfers to foreign government and international organizations, higher institutions. We've got households, public corps and private enterprises, heritage assets, machinery and equipment, software and other intangible assets, payment for financial assets or thefts and losses in brackets. These are the economic classifications that we operate with. As already said, that the total in these in the total spending, it's 97.5. When we go into compensation of employees, we had a budget of 380.2 million, where we spent 333.7, and unspent funds, it's 46.5. That translates to 87.8%. Goods and services, we had a budget of 483.6 million. We had spent 462.4, which translates to 95.6. Unspent amount in the line of goods and services, it's 21.1 million. Conditional grant, we had a budget of 1.5 billion, where we spent 1.5 billion, translated to 99.9%. Departmental agencies and accounts, we had a budget of 2.2 billion. We had spent 2.2 billion, which translated to 99.4%. NPIs, we had a budget of 476.1 million. We had spent 444, that is 444.4, and translated to 93.4%. Provincial, foreign government and international organizations, we had a budget of 5.9 million. We had spent 5.2 million, translated to 88.1. And higher education institutions, we've got a budget of 5.8. We transferred 5.8, translated to 100%. Households, we had a budget of 21.9 million. We had spent 19.6, which translated to 88.7. Heritage assets, we had a budget of 92.4, and we had transferred or paid 83.3 million, which translates to 90.1%. Machinery and equipment, we had a budget of 11.4. We had spent 11 million, which translates to 96.8%. Software and other intangible assets, we had a budget of 115,000. We had spent it all, that's 100%. And payment for financial assets, here basically these are our write-offs that we had incurred in the department. We had a budget of 14,000 that we allocated thereof towards the end of the year. That makes the expenditure equal to 100%. Here, Chairperson and honorable members will be explaining now the variances that we had incurred per economic classification. For compensation of employees, as we saw that we had spent 87.8%, here we've got a variance of 46.5 million, which was caused by the vacancies that we had at the end of the financial year, where as a department, we couldn't fill those vacant posts. Firstly, as we remember, Chairperson and honorable members, when the lockdown happened, as a department, with the posts that we had advertised, we couldn't continue with those outlets because DPSA has instructed or given directives that as departments, we should not fill the vacancies or continue with the posts that we had advertised as at the date of the hard lockdown. That circular was circular 13 of 2020, HR and employment practices, that was giving us a directive that was signed by the Minister of MPSA on the 26th of March, that was inhibiting us to fill the posts, and then that caused delays in the department in filling those posts, which was about up to 6 months. And again, remember, we had to postpone the closing dates. So that's why at the end of the financial year, we would have some vacancies that were not filled. Per program, those is the COE expenditure for program 1. We had a budget of 176.6, and we spent 168.8, translating to 95.6%. Program 2, we had a budget of 47.7, which we had spent 28.1, translating to 59%. Program 3, 88.5 million, we had spent 79.1 million, translating to 89.4%. Program 4, we had a budget in COE of 67.3 million. We had spent 57.5, translating to 85.5. The next slide will be giving the variance in goods and services in that economic classification, goods and services, where we had a total budget of 483.6 million. We had spent 462.4, and giving us a variance of 21.2, This is mainly, if we remember, our budget was cut. And again, as a department, that where most of our departmental events are mass-based due to COVID, our department couldn't deliver those events. And this had a huge impact on our travel expenses, whereby we had savings on the travel costs due to the impact of national lockdown and the reduced or scaled down events. The next category or the next economic classification is under provincial and municipal grants, which is for a conditional grant. The variance in this economic classification, it's none. We've had paid 100%. We had a budget of 1.2 billion, and we had transferred it all to the different provinces. This slide shows the breakdown or the allocations of the different provinces from Eastern Cape to Western Cape. Those are the figures where we had a budget of 130.2 for Eastern Cape, which we transferred 100%. Free State, 130.8, we transferred it all. Gauteng, 130.5, we transferred it all. KZN, 143.2, we transferred it all. Limpopo, 106.8, 100% was transferred. Mpumalanga, we had 126.1, and also 100% was transferred. Northern Cape, we had a budget of 130.9, 100% was transferred. Northwest, we had a budget of 102.3, also 100% was transferred. Lastly, Western Cape, we had a budget of 151.4 and 100% of it was transferred. The next slide is for the mass participation grant again for provinces where 100% of the grant was transferred. The budget there was 368 million, where again we transferred 368.1 million to all the provinces. That is the breakdown. Chairperson, where Eastern Cape we had 33.6 that was transferred, and the budget for Free State 82.3, also it was transferred 100%. Gauteng 38.9, KZN 38.2, Limpopo 31.7, Mpumalanga 28.3, Northern Cape 27.6, Northwest 27 million, Western Cape lastly 60.3. All these budgets or these amounts were transferred fully to the provinces, so there is no variance under conditional grant. Departmental agencies, we had a total budget of 1,097,559,000. And out of that, we've got an under expenditure of about 14.4 million, which is mainly due to the delays that had happened in the implementation of public arts, PSP, and also delays with Izigo Museum Courtyard project due to the COVID-19 restrictions that we had. This slide, it shows the expenditure on the different institutions that we are having for current and capital expenditure, where we've got Artscape, Market Theatre Foundation, National Arts Council, National NFVF, Performing Arts Center of Free State, that's PACOS, Playhouse, State Theatre, capital transfers to the performing arts institutions, departmental, the small business partnership that we had for the relief fund, and also Mzansi Golden Economy projects. These are some of the institutions or the line items that we're having, where we're showing the variance or the performance thereof, whereby some of them we had an expenditure of 100%, others just below 100%, which translates to 99, on average 99.8. And again, when we continue, we've got other institutions, Northern Flagship Dizong Museum, where we're showing what was the expenditure versus what was the budget versus the actual expenditures. These are the institutions: Dizong Museum, Izigo Museum of Cape Town, War Museum of Boer Republic, KZN Museum, National Museum, the African Sedal Museum, Amazwi SA Museum of Literature, Umsunduzi Fortrekker Museum, Robben Island Museum, William Humphrey Arts Gallery, National Mandela Museum. As explained, this also is a continuation of the departmental agencies, and some of them, as shown on the slides, chairperson and members, some they had spent 100% or were transferred 100%, some just a little below 100%. Lastly, under departmental agencies, we've got Freedom Park, Luthuli Museum, South African Heritage Resource Agency, National Heritage Council, and capital transfers for the different heritage institutions. That is the allocations of these institutions and their expenditure thereof. Under the category libraries, we've got for the current and capital transfers that were done, National Library, South African Library for the Blind, National Library, community libraries, capital transfers for the libraries, a capital transfer for the library, South African Library for the Blind. Here we had a budget of 217.5, and we had transferred 100% of this budget. Departmental agencies and accounts under the sport sector or recreation, sport and development program, we've got two entities, SAIDS, that is South African Institute for Drug Free, and BSA Boxing South Africa. Also, we had a budget there and we had transferred 100% of the 46.3. Other departmental agencies / constitutional institutions, we had a budget of 122.7 and 98.5% of that was transferred, where these are the other institutions, National Youth Development Agencies, KEDSITA, Mabana Art, Culture and Sport Foundation, Gauteng Tourism Authority, and lastly, under constitutional institutions, we've got PESP. Those are the institutions that we have in the department where we had made the transfers under the economic classification, departmental agencies and accounts. We're moving to foreign government and international organizations. Here we've got a variance of 705,000 of the budget that we had, which was 5.9, and we had transferred 5.2, translating to 88.1% of this budget being spent. And the variance is due mainly to the fluctuations in the rand to pound exchange rates towards the Commonwealth Foundation annual subscriptions that we had paid. Households, here we had a variance of 2.3 million. We had a budget of 21.9 and we had spent 19.6, translating to 89.7%. The variance mainly is due to the lockdown that necessitated to schools, and this resulted in the ministerial bursary support holders not claiming less than the 100,000 budgeted initially for each learner. As we can see there, that under the scientific support, that is bursaries, non-employees, we had a lower spending, which translated to 57%. Public corps. Chairperson?
No, you've said 67. I've seen you written 57.
57, apologies, Chairperson, 57%.
Okay.
Thank you. Public corps and private public corporations and private enterprises. Here we had an underspending of 7 million. We had a budget of 61.9. We had spent 54.9, translating to 88.7%. The variance of 7 million is mainly due to the incomplete reports under MGE, that is Mzansi Gold and Economy beneficiaries, which resulted to some of their second tranches not being processed at year end. NPIs, non-profit institutions, here we had a variance of 31.6 million, which is due to the underspending relating to incomplete reports as said of MGE. This is the continuing MGE beneficiaries that resulted in the second tranches not being implemented or processed at year end. Again, the delays in the implementation of the PSP programs towards the creation of jobs for monitoring of compliance to COVID relations. These slides, Chairperson, I didn't go line by line, on the different institutions, which I take it as being read and the members have seen. But we can highlight that the low spending or underspending was again on the community arts and development line, where we see our total spending was 622 against the budget of 1.4, which translated to about 42.8%. So, and also under heritage programs, the various institutions, there was underspending, which translated to about 37.2%. Those are the line items that could have contributed mainly to the underspending. Continuing again under NPIs, BASA, next slide please, BASA, Engel and Beckhouse and BSA, there we've got again 100% that was transferred to those institutions. When we're continuing, next slide, sports federations under NPIs, sports federations, we had a budget of 174.9 and we had transferred 150.9, translating to 86.3%. The other institutions, that is for Love Life, at the Sports Trust, there was 100% transfer on their budget that was allocated. Higher education institutions, here we've got 100% transfer to the universities for the home language technologies projects. The budget was 5.8 and the actual transfer was 5.8. Heritage assets. The variance in this category or in this economic classification of 9.1 million, we had a budget of 92.4, where we had spent or transferred 83.3, translating to the total spending of 90.1%. Here, the 9.1 million under expenditure was due to different reasons. One, National Archives, Old Library. Here, the final accounts were not paid to the service provider by DPW as appointed. Company is owned by an alleged illegal foreigner. Home Affairs and DPW are really resolving this matter. Number two, JL Dube House, there was time lost on account of local community disturbances or due to community disturbances on site, where the contractor had to suspend the work on site due to the hostile takeover. 3, OR Tambo Memorial Garden of Remembrance, the installation of the OR Tambo statue could not happen due to the ongoing investigation that the department had instituted, which has not been completed. 4, lastly, Pulukwane Performing Arts Centers. The feasibility study for the project was only completed late in the financial year, and the construction will only happen in February 2022. As said, there is an underspending of about 9.1 million. The category software payments for financial assets and machinery and equipment. Here we had spent 11.1 from the budget of 11.5, translating to 96.8%. The variance of 370,000 was not spent, or an amount of 370,000 was not spent due to the delays in the procurement of IT equipment that had happened, was not finalized by year end. When we continue down, Chairperson, this is then the economic classification per program. I am not sure, Chairperson, should I go again per program until the program 4, because this is just now the breakdown per program according to each economic classification. We can give guidance, Chairperson. Thank you.
We can reflect when you answering questions on that. Can you continue?
Okay. Chairperson, program 1.
I'm saying that as you just indicated that you are repeating, I'm saying as
Yes.
committee members, when we are asking questions, we've got a right to go and refer to programs that now we
Thank you,
wanted to
Chairperson.
refer. Yes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you. Then this will be the end of the presentation, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DG and your colleagues. DG?
No, Chairperson, I am covered. We have tabled the annual report with the financials, and we hand back to the chair.
Take off anything from screen. We refer when we want to. Honorable members, let me now go to the honorable members. Let me take this opportunity to thank the department with this presentation. I'm seeing the hand of Honorable Mhlongo, Honorable Madlingozi, Honorable Malomane, Honorable Adams, Honorable Veronica, Honorable Makaula, Honorable Dennis, in that order, honorable members. Let's have our bite. Honorable Mhlongo.
Thank you, Chair. I can close my video. Is that fine?
Yes.
Thank you.
We've seen you with a beautiful thread.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we welcome the presentation and we welcome even the finances. But as a layman, DG, I wanted to find out, you've done a survey for others. Have you done a survey to all sectors, all supporters, all empathizers to check with them that people are happy with the performance of the entities and the department? Because the survey doesn't count that. Now, have you done the survey that will show that all sectors within the department, supporters, empathizers, are happy with the performance of the department? I think we must do that survey. And the next question, the performance is 74%, but the finances is 97.5%. The performance, like your service delivery, is 74%. But can you explain to me as a layman? I thought each and every target has budget. And then if each target has performed 50%, you cannot say finances is 100%. Now, can you explain to me the 74% on performance and the 97.5% on the budget? I think I need an explanation and I'll understand the actuals. Chair, I wanted even to ask issues of federation. How many federations do we have? Are we having 49 federation or 60 federation or 40 federation? Because the presentation is contradicting itself. There's somewhere it says 49, and last time I think it's DDG, he stated clear in our last meeting that it's 60 federation. How many federations do we have? And I've received the documentation regarding federation that we've requested, but I think I must clear something. On the letter, it says closing date is the 2nd July 2021 for the federation to submit. The question was, did you communicate to individual federation after the 2nd of July that they must submit? I need an example of an email to each federation to say, not a group federation, to say you must submit, the actual dates are this. The communication that I'm talking about, the delaying days or the delaying of releasing the actual funding for federation, because we have received several complaints. They've submitted individual federation, but they did not get the money on X date. Now, annually, what is the actual date where federation received their grant? And then can I have those emails again that are specific, what I'm asking, not the one that I've received, because the question was, let's see if you've communicated that there's a delay because of all, I was told that the cake, it's X cake, you have to divide it based on federations and based on their budget, or not budget, their business plan, so to say. Chair, another question I wanted to find out, why does the department has 100 plus minus 100? No. The question is, sorry, Chair, DG, I saw your media statement yesterday because I have only this opportunity to ask you, why did you agree that you'll meet Sibongile and the group, but later you don't come, you close the office, they're outside, there are 5, and you send police, plus minus 100 police were there for 5 individuals, and these are members of the sector, these are artists. Why do we behave like this? Why didn't we honor the actual date that I have a letter that you and Mam Sibongile have signed? Mam Sibongile department, Dr. Kumalo, not Sibongile. Dr. Kumalo has signed that letter that you've confirmed that you'll attend the meeting, but the office is closed, has bodyguards, has security. And what state are we having as a department for us not to engage our sector or our members or our supporters or empathizers? Why don't we communicate or sit down with each and every individual that wants to raise any concern within the department? Last question or two, Chair. I'm concerned with the recommendations that are not implemented by the department. The internal audit, it's always an issue that there are no consequence management, and the department is not implementing that recommendation. What is the cost? When are they going to implement? In the last 3 consecutive financial years, I would say 2016, 17, 18 to date, there's no implementation of the internal audit committee in implementing the consequence management. Financial statements are not aligned with the submitted finances. Statement containing in the material statement need to be followed up because the executive is not authorizing or accounting officer is not implementing the action plan. What is the cost? Do we have preventative controls? If yes, why don't we implement that? Chair, I've got several questions, but I want to stop here because I'll get other opportunity because I can ask more. I think the time that we have is less, but let me hold for now because I know you've counted my questions.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. The next honorable member is Honorable Mahlingozi.
Thank you, Chair. Let me show my face, otherwise the network isn't doing all right. So can I make myself vanish now?
Yes, thank you, Honorable.
Molweni, honorable members, respected visitors, Enkosi Kabazela for the presentation and the rest of your team. This report that is done now it looks like it is done because it is wanted by law of this country to do so. It is worrying that even the last days of this parliament in 2021, the minister and his deputy still finds it not important to come and sit with the committee that the department is not respecting at all. It is through chairperson that most entities under this department have been riddled with all sorts of irregularities and accusations of which the minister and his deputy could have been here to reassure this committee that it will be different in the coming year. Chairperson, there is no national pride in wearing t-shirts of an entity that is accused of racism. Talking about it hasn't changed anything. What are the consequences of those accusations? None whatsoever. Chairperson, so again, this department comes here just to talk, just to express different numbers that are meaningless for the people that are on the ground that are suffering today. Now the question is, what happened about those racial accusations with Cricket South Africa? Are we going to see justice done on national arts councillors who embezzled monies earmarked for the suffering creatives, just like Honorable Mhlongo has been saying that this department just lock the people outside as if they are useless, they are not human beings. And what has this department done to be proud of like this year? Chairperson, I'll stop from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mahlingozi. Honorable Malomane.
Thank you, Chair. Let me switch on my video and then I'll switch it off again. You can send me. Can I switch it off?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Let me firstly welcome the presentation from the department and also say molweni futhi kimi basebenzi mmogo badira mmogo, our colleagues, molweni to our precious staff and to everyone that is present. Chairperson, my question, it will be based on the issue that there are targets that are not being achieved in the 2020-2021 financial year. Are there any targets that have been moved to the financial year of 2020-21 and or to 2022? So if there are any, can we be alerted on those ones? And then on the issue, I can see that the issue of the invoice, now I can see there is more clarity on it as it was outlined in the issue of EAG. So I just want to find out if the department has any other ways of dealing with such challenges, because the Treasury has stated that if the invoice is not paid within 30 days, it will be it will become as a non-compliance when it comes to the issue of audit. And then the other one that I want to speak about is the issues of the South African geographical names, the challenges that we're facing. They said there were challenges. I don't know whether it's solved or what on the issues of the South African geographical names, because it was a target that was also not achieved. On the issue of the federation not submitting or not complying, I hear in the report they are saying there are 3 federations that have not submitted. And then I just want to find out, because I can see that this is a challenge. Does the state of this federation of this non-compliance has an impact in the sports itself, or does the non-compliance of the sporting body or federation signal governance challenges and weak state of the sporting code? And in the issue of young staff, the young development, as we want to, on our last committee, we're speaking about development. On the issue of youth development, how does this non-compliance or this federation do they impact on the issue of youth development of our youngsters? The other thing that I want to speak about is that the issue of the capacity building project, which were, the target was 1410 were done. The 2 were financially covered, but not, that means we're not fully supported. The other 2 were not fully supported. How did the department in this financial year deal with those 4? Because they were not fully, the 2 that were not fully supported and the 2 that were partially supported. And on the issue of the Western Cape, on the Provincial Community Arts Development Programs that was scheduled to be done in June this year, is it done or not? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Malomane. The next member is Honorable Adams.
Thank you very much, Chair. And with the permission, I will close my video. Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, all. Good morning to the department, the staff, all invitees and colleagues. I also wanted to join the other speakers by welcoming the presentation. My first question will go on slide 28. The Sarah Bartman Center of Remembrance project officially started in 2014 and was due in 2019. What is the current status of the implementation? And on slide 34, Chairperson, the department should be commended for its contribution of making tertiary education accessible through its provision of language bursaries. Can the department provide an overview of areas of study for which the bursaries were awarded? Slide 36, 5 moral red regeneration movement projects was financially supported. Only 2 were implemented. What does this mean in terms of the financial resources that were allocated to these projects? And in slide 43, Chairperson, on the areas of study that the recipients of the heritage bursary are engaged in, can the department elaborate on it? Slide 44, modular, the new built libraries were supported financially and was exceeded by 21. Will all these new libraries have internet connection as connectivity? Program 2, slide 28. 10 community gyms and children play parks was constructed, Comrade Chair. Can we have a list where it was being constructed? And my second last question, Chair. I noted on slide 56, the Northern Cape are the lowest, has the lowest allocation of 27,000, whilst Northern Cape are the largest province. How are the department calculated the allocations per province? And slide 64, I also noted donations and gifts, in brackets cash. Who was the beneficiaries of this cash? Slide 66, what was the cause of the underspending of the heritage projects? Slide 70, the Winnie Mandela House Clinic, what was the reason for not completing the project? I thank you, Chair. I will stop there.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. Honorable Van Dijk.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. I will also welcome the presentation. I only have 3 questions. My first one is on program 2. I wonder if it's possible, the implementation of the heritage legacy projects, which seems to be an ongoing challenge. If it's possible that we can have an updated list of each legacy project that was started over the past 10 years and the status of this completion, the total cost budgeted and the total spent so far, and how many of these projects are still incomplete and the reason why and when they will be completed. I think we at some stage did receive communication on projects, but if we can just have an updated project maybe list maybe. Then on program 4, the underspending in the Mzansi Gold Economy sub-program, if that can be explained, especially it's concerning because of the industry, the creative industry, the challenges that they experience, specifically also with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the arts, culture, heritage sector. And then there's apparently 11 employees that were disciplined for financial misconduct or irregular expenditure. If can the department maybe indicate for which financial period these incidents to which they relate to, and what was the nature of the disciplinary action taken? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Dijk. The next honorable member is Honorable Kaula.
Thank you, Chair. Ngibonga i-presentation. Ngibonge nakumavovo lapha. Okwami kodwa okuningi sebekukhulumile lana Chairperson, although ngisenakho la ukuthinta kancane, but the most likely go not achieve nginombuzo ukuthi lana kusuke ashivanga khona bagcina kuyekelele kanjalo noma bayakwazi ukubuyela emuva bahambe bayoqhubeka nalana basuke bengaqhubekanga khona ngoba kubalekile phela ngisingajabulela ukuthi bayasebenza kodwa behambe benza umsebenzi bewushiya ikhawu ungenzisizwe. Angisangeni kakhulu. Ngiphinde kuye ngiye kule ama-heritage. Ama-heritage ngolongakhala chairperson wami ukuthi yes siyamthanda uWinnie Madikizela noma kanjalo noLuthuli. Siyawazi amagalelo wabo ekulweleni umuntu omnyama nesithunzi sakhe njengoba sesikwazi la sithi sikhululekile. But mina ngiyojabula chairperson kungagcini lapho njalo masikhuluma ama-heritage singakwazi ukunaba sibheke abantu bakithi abavelele lesabaphiwa umveli nqangi lakha amakhosi ethu esawaphiwa ukuthi nawe siyafuna kukhulu abalwe lama kwenziwa ama-heritage because nabo likhona igalelo lalikhulu namanje lisekhona singathi sikhona sibe sibamnyama sikhombise ukwenza njani ukwacindezela kuyimanje amabhunu akakhohlwa abantu bakuba even imigwaqo ayabizwa ngayo ikuphi la sobona khona nathi abantu bakithi abamnyama ababelwa special amakhosi siwabone ubhala umgwaqo ngawo ngisuke la ngize lana ke manje angizi ukuhlupha ngizongena ngithi qaphu ngidloba sebeyishayile izinto but sengiyazama ngamgcizelela khona la kukhona khona ngama community gym children play ePaki if sikhuluma ngalezi zinto ama community children gym eMapaki ngisene question marks yokuthi why njalo thina masikhuluma ngalaba bantu la kuyaziwa ukuthi kunezingane ezidlalayo eMapaki but asiyiboni lento lena kwamanye amalokishi kwamanye khona but asiyiboni kwamanye amalokishi amapaki ekhonjiswa ukuthi nanka kunabantu abadlalayo abagcina khona abachitha khona izungu lakhe nje nanda Ward 54 i1 ungayibona iqothuke kanjani although sazi ukuthi nomasipala banesandla lapha kodwa ke thina ngoba si-national why singabheki ukuthi lezi imali ezikhishwayo ukuthi azihambe ziyokwenza ukuthi ingane nazo zithole zichitha isizungu ngabe usobhutshwayo ngabe intoni kodwa kuyenzeka inakuze ngalokhu kuqulelwa imali endaweni eyi1 lakhe nje emakhaya ingane ungayibona zidlala endaweni oyibonayo ukuthi lezi ngane edlala khona eMapaki akwazi kufakwe ngisho amapaki zize zigawulele zona and la ikhombisa khona ukuthi zimisele nazo ukufana nezinye ingane kodwa manje sisabukelwa phansi la ngiyazi still again nizothi no thina imali siyayisa kodwa ukuthi ayifiki yini nina niyenza to make sure ukuthi labo bantu abamelele amakhaya noma lezi ndawo zomasipala mabe reporter nithi no before siye ekomdini sicela iproof uyayizwa lonto ngidlule sikhuluma international engagement coordinate ngithi nitshotshela kancane isingisi ngishayela kancane amateme engisi ningaphaphike kodwa member of moral ngizwe kahle mavavuka ngithathi kancane mina no ngifuna ukubuza ke la ukuthi yini i-engagement nixhumana kanjani nabo to make sure ukuthi niyababona laba bayadlala and bayakwazi ukuyimisela ukuze nikwazi nani sibone nathi nibathatha nibathuthukisa nibadayisa sibone njengalo muntu okuthiwa umbuso khoza okhombisa ukuthi hey abantu bangaphandle kwamanye amazwe bawalambele amaciko noma abadlali balana noma izinto uJavas phezulu. Sengigcina ngci. Angisanihluphi kakhulu manje. Ngibonge ukuthi inja yakho usuyivalele. Asikwazi lana thina sihlele ekomdini sikhonkothwa inja. Angani noma uyasabisa chairperson akuqala thina suke KZN samanazalethu asizwani nenja. Othatha inja uhambe oyifihla kude. Ngiyabonga.
Ayo yami le nje bikhongota ekakhabazela.
Tshele kukhabazela ukuthi angazi ngoba uyazi asizwani nezinja thina.
Siyabonga Mama Kaula. I-interpretation ke ibikhona bakuzwile abantu ngoba uma ukhuluma ibikhona incedisana nenkulumo yakho. Honorable Dennis.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to thank the department for the presentation. I would like to start, Chairperson, by saying I think this the budget cuts at 956 million. I think was I think it was that amount was too big, and I think the department must try. We must try hard to get in a new year with a financial budget some of that money back into the department. Chairperson, with the performance review, the 74% achieved, and out of the 29 out of 39 targets, it's interesting that that amount, that percentage, obviously, if we look at the expenditure of 97%, which is good, then obviously one have to deeper into the performance review of the departments, in particular the areas where there was underachievement, the modernized program, heritage legacy projects, and the number of provincial resistance and liberation heritage projects as indicated by other members. My question, Chairperson, is in program 2, the sports promotion, recreation development and sports promotion. Sorry, that's not a question, it's a comment. I noted there's a big increase, and it appears that the events, NGOs or sports partners do now report adequately about the events and the attendance thereof in program 2. My question is in the heritage legacy projects not implemented, that in Ukeni and as members raised the Sarah Bartman. I think we need to know precisely, get more detail what is happening there. And then on the school sports program, Chairperson, I feel we must get a report from provinces, provincial departments, what sports are they directly involved with regarding to with schools, and then later on get a survey from schools, what sports codes, particularly the underprivileged schools, do they engage in. It will give us an idea of what departments should zoom into when we get the school sports going. I also want to ask the question as by the previous member, but I think I want to ask it differently. The Western Cape Community Arts Development Program that indicated they would only finish this program in April next year, I think. My question is, why is it the department not encouraging or forcing the Western Cape to complete the program by the end of March? And why I'm proposing this financial year is that we do not have to run into another financial year if we allow them to finish it in April next year. Chairperson, I'm also concerned about on page 38, 39 about the budget problem. How the department, I want to know how the department intends to correct the problems with budget items for gender-based violence, which is very important, and the flag program that was discontinued, and the National Arts Skies project that discontinued, which there there are no reasons were given. And then just lastly, Chairperson, on the financial side, with the acting CFO, Ms. Sibongeli, I think we need to commend the department for spending 97.5%, which is 2% up on the previous financial year, 1920. So it is a big improvement. And then also from page 55 to page 57, the transfer of funds to provinces and entities, also page 58 to 60 to the entities. I just want to know, is there a particular compliance or prescribed time frame that we have to transfer these funds? Because what we do not want is fiscal dumping to provinces just to get our records clear. So, or is there a monitor, and then what is the report back or monitoring on these funds that we give to provinces or to municipalities? And then lastly, Chairperson, the AG findings, I think we should also continue to engage the department on claims, lawsuit claims against the department and consequence management, investigations as per National Treasury regulations on misconduct cases in the department. I think that would obviously from our side be an ongoing discussion. But overall, I think there is a good improvement on what we have been dealing with in the department. But I think the entities, the number, vast amount, I think we have to zoom in onto some of the entities that is not delivering on their mandate. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Dennis. Honorable Zondi.
Ngiyabonga wesihlalo. Isendaweni engathi inomsindwana mangabe ungabekezeleli awukwazi ukucontrol ngizoyeka kodwa I just want to be quick so that honorable members and department will catch the question. Ngiyabingelela amalungu ahloniphekile ne-department eholo uMavovo. Mavovo, nami ngiyayimukela i-report chair, i-presentation chair. I must say upfront that I'm satisfied with the performance of the department program and the expenditure of the by program thereof. I can't say I'm happy, but I can't say I have a concern. I don't have a concern. I think I'm satisfied with the explanations the department has put forward. I had two questions, Chair. Mavovo ukhulume ngo 956 a reduction of the adjustment budget. I just want to know this reduction of the adjustment was as a result of the planned programs that was not undertaken, or was it because of the department was trying to avoid the under expenditure? That's the first one. And the last one, Chair, is the variance, no variance on the is the transfers of in the provinces, where indications is that there is no variance, which means 100% of the transfers per province was undertaken. I just want to know, how do you hold the municipalities accountable for the transfers? Because if you just give them 100% transfers, then but how do you hold them accountable, Kabazel? Other than that, my colleagues has covered me on the other question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Zondi. I'm taking back to the department to respond with so many questions. We'll do follow up, some of us, but now I'm giving back to DG. I thank you.
Honorable Chairperson and the Honorable and the respectable
Can
members.
honorable members lower your hands in order that I will be aware of follow-up questions. You must all lower your hands, all of you. Please, honorable members, in order that I must chair the meeting accordingly. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, DG. I'm sorry for this.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Ndiyabulela ngiyabonga imibuzo. Ngoba ngihamba nethimba lami la, ngizocela ukuthi lingilekelele ekuphenduleni imibuzo. I will ask my colleagues to assist in responses. Without wasting time, a number of questions have been raised in almost all the programs. Maybe, Chair, I must just correct that eventually DDG Khan was unable to join us as she is still in Swaziland for the AU region conference. So we've got Mr. Piwe and Nube. So when there are more issues relating to that category of questions will then be responded to as and assisted by him. Chairperson, the questions around have we done survey on the other sectors, and if not, particularly whether the public is happy with the department or not. Well, no, we haven't done that. The customer satisfaction survey, if I may put it that way, that is how I understand Honorable Mhlongo. We had not done that because at the time our greatest focus was mainly on impact of COVID on the various sectors. And then the survey was open to all sectors to then participate. So we take a note of the advice relating to possibly conducting such a survey on the perceived performance of the department by the public. It always helps to advise you on your areas of weaknesses and where to improve. So we always welcome such feedback. So I think it's something we must just consider going forward, Honorable Chairperson. The variance relating to performance vis-a-vis budget, the acting CFO might have a bite on this. But Honorable Chairperson and members, I want to indicate that as we indicated that the programs there vis-a-vis the COVID-19 budget was then also used for the relief, where we removed budget from the APP targets and reprioritized them for the relief. And that relief was not based on any additional budget from National Treasury. It was a reprioritization from the department after Minister Mtetwa had met with both the organizations of sport as well as the sector organizations. And then they proposed the issue of relief. Then Minister advised that myself and my team look at where we can get the money, because Treasury was already looking for the money to deal with the issues of health. And therefore they were not going to give us a cent. Hence, then we ended up having to reprioritize the budget. But that then would have increased the issue of expenditure over and above what is on the target APP. But I think the acting CFO may add in that matter, together with maybe Sakio and Chiso if they want to add. I will ask Simpiwe to deal with this issue of the specific question about how many federations does the department have.
Please try to raise your voice, DG.
And Chairperson, So I was saying that then Simpiwe will take the questions related to the program 2. I will then factor where I need to. And then of course I will ask that DDG, acting DDG, Lisa, if she wants to deal with the matters on program theory, that she does that. So can I start first with the DDG, the acting CFO in particular, because most questions are zooming more on money, and then we will take the programs as they follow each other. CFO.
Thank you, DG. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members for the questions. The first question that was being asked of saying, why is our financial performance higher and our target performance higher? That is the 97.5% on the financial performance on money spent by the department versus the 74%. If DG, you allow me, I would remind the honorable members that we came to this portfolio committee and presented our 2021 budget, that is the adjusted budget, where we had shared with the members how does the pie look, basically to say, how is this 5.3 billion spread against the different economic categories. If I may to remind DG and honorable members is that 21% of this budget, that is from the 5.3, is only spent within the department, meaning goods and services for the projects that are in the department, other administrative costs, and compensation of employees. That forms the part of the 21%, which is 1.1 billion. And this is not linked to the KPIs. That will also cause the difference. And only 79% of this budget, it's mainly transfers that goes out in the department or it's spent outside the department, which we further broke it down to say 46% of that budget, it's mainly to the provinces where we've got 2 DORA grants that amounts to about 2.1 billion, where again, not all these KPIs are part of that budget. But if we look, almost half of that budget, it goes to the provinces, where the transfers are guaranteed that we will transfer 100% of that budget, as showed in those slides that were showing the transfers to the provinces. And again, we've got about 41% of this budget that goes to our entities and agencies, which again, some of these targets are not linked to that budget. So that's where this, you can call it our budget and performance becomes obscured, because one, in the COE, if we go down on the classification where we're saying how much of this budget it's contained in the COE, 32% of this budget is COE, and COE payments are not linked to these performance indicators that we were presenting as this department to the portfolio committee. I hope that it would answer why we have this skewness between the budget and the performance.
Can I ask the CEO that you get crisp and not do too much depots of time? Thanks.
Thank you, DG. And again, going down to the question of saying these allocations to the provinces, do we have any legislation that guides us on when to pay and how much do we pay? As I said already, we've got DORA, which is a legislation that we need to comply with. In the DORA, there is a framework that we sign with National Treasury where we would stipulate timelines also to say when do we transfer how much to each provinces. And again, the question of how do we do the allocations of the provinces, we are guided by the equitable, we use the statistics from Statistics XA, where we get the allocation of saying the statistics in this province, and then how do we do the presentation. So that's where we get the equitable share percentages of the allocations. But safe to say, DG, that for the mass participation grant, which program 2 would assist them, Mr. Mnude, their grant, we've got a baseline that was negotiated in the Sport and Recreation Department when we're doing the allocations, whereby we say for each and every province, before we apply the equitable share percentages, there is a 20 million that is given so that we cater for provinces like Northern Cape, which end up with the least of the pie in the equitable share percentages based on the statistics or the population of the province. The other question that was asked on finances is the question of saying, what is it that we paid under donations and gifts, the amount of 700,000 in slide 64. There it's ministerial awards where we recognize excellence as the department to the athletes that have performed well. So in this year under review, that is we're presenting today, the 2020-2021 annual report, we had, if we remember, we had to recognize excellence for the women team, for the cricket team. We had to recognize the women team in the football, that is Banyana Banyana, and other athletes that have performed well during the year from the different federations. The other question that, that maybe I can take, DG, is in relation to the presentation that AGSA had presented to Portfolio Committee on how did we perform, where as a department for the financial statements, we had only, received an unqualified audit opinion with 2 matters of emphasis, which was mainly on the transfer and of functions and measures, which that is for the users to note that this department had function transfer from both SRSA, the former department, and the DSAC department. And on the audit of legislation, that's where we had 2 findings as a department where the financial statements were not presented fairly, or they had misstatements, which when we engaged with AG, we found each other and corrected those misstatements. What we have done as a department, as we stated in the previous Portfolio Committee meeting, where we said we had now done some work to check what are the root causes that made us not to present our financial statements fairly, and as AG would say, maybe in other instances, incomplete, where we had to fix the errors that they would have picked. We had now put in place a team from different units which would review every input that we submit. We had also involved early in the year, that is now in Q1, after we submitted our IFS, the internal audit and risk to do a thorough risk assessment of the root causes of these matters. And we'll also take these matters to be evaluated by a team that is, we've got a task team that is established to also assess the matters that led to misstatements that would lead to being irregular expenditure. DG has signed letters. The task team is sitting today, starting today in the afternoon, that will look at those things. So committee members, we are working in trying to clear those misstatements, which were about 5 findings that led to the misstatements, and others would find it's an error, a typing error when we were transferring our Word or Excel document to the Word. Unfortunately, it's a manual transfer that we had to do where there was a typing error, which also AG translated as a misstatement. But yes, we are putting steps to do those corrections. I am not sure if DG, should I touch on matters of consequences management on the irregular expenditure on what was done? Because I think as a department, yes, as a department, we need to put it to the Portfolio Committee that there was investigations that were done, whereby we had appointed in 2019 a company to come and investigate those irregular expenditures that, or expenditures that led to irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure in the former department, which we had implemented those findings or the recommendations from Mora. We had a company that was, we're saying it's Mora Incorporated, that was appointed, where it found that there were irregular expenditures that, yes, members of the department or officials were issued with final written warnings after sitting with them on the different disciplinary hearings. There were 9 letters that were issued in August 2020, resulting in final written warnings. There were written warnings that were also issued, and also verbal warnings to those transactions that were found that had led to irregular expenditures. And again, there were 16 letters. What unfortunately, 5 of those officials had resigned, 2 officials were dismissed, and 4 officials, their contracts had ended when this investigation was done, and 4 officials were transferred to other departments. In the matters of fruitless and wasteful expenditures, Mora found that there were officials that were supposed to be also taken through, or matters that were supposed to be taken through disciplinary hearings, which then was done by August 2020. And we had 8 letters that were issued to officials, where we had 3 written warnings that were issued, 2 final written warnings that were issued. And again, when we assessed, Mora said there were other transactions that there were no recommendations that we need to take actions against those officials. As a department, we will then write to National Treasury and say we need to reclassify those transactions, because now after the investigations, it means those transactions were classified incorrectly to be treated as fruitless and wasteful expenditures, which were about 3 of those matters. So there were no actions that were taken. And again, 2 letters could not be issued on the fruitless and wasteful because the employee was transferred to another department and 1 other employee is already on pension. As I already said, that we have made a task team. We had written as internal control in the office of the CFO to DG that we need to have a task team that sits and evaluate the matters that now in the year 2021-22 are possible irregulars or possible fruitless, so that we can start now implementing consequence management that would be required, so that come year end, we have done some work on that space. Thank you, DG and committee members. I'll be told if maybe there are other questions that maybe I could have missed. Or the last question is the question, sorry, DG, the matter on 30 days. The report had shown that only 1 payment out of the 1.4 thousand payments that we had processed, unfortunately was termed as being not complying with 30 days, whereby the back and forth between SCM and finance on the validity of the payment led to this payment to be paid within 33 days instead of 30 days, which we have, this shows that as a department, we try to put mechanisms whereby each and every payment that we pay, we analyze and ensure that we pay a valid invoice and we pay it on time. But unfortunately, on that payment, when we investigate, there were 2 stamps on the date received, whereby it was an initial stamp which AG evaluated on, unfortunately, and the stamp where the payment was returned back from the end user, because there was a back and forth trying to make sure that we pay a correct payment, which it should be a valid invoice. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, CFO. Can I take Mr. Ndima?
Thank you very much, DG. Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to all the members of the committee. I will be speaking to specific issues responding to heritage. One area that was asked about is the South African geographical names. And the question was around why, what were the problems around it, or why it was discontinued as stated in the report that has been presented to Parliament. Chairperson, we had to withdraw, or we had to discontinue the target because we were quite aware of the fact that as part of transforming the heritage landscape, and more particularly naming landscape, it requires a lot of consultation. And some of those consultations require physical conduct or encounters. Now that we realized that there was hard lockdown, we were then afraid that we could continue with such a target because we were not certain about the possibility of people being able to meet and do the consultation. Hence, we then discontinue that particular target. And then there was a question around the status of implementation of Sarah Bartman. Just to indicate, Chair, that yes, we have a challenge with this particular project, which started in 2013. It was supposed to have been completed 3 years after that. But of course, there has been challenges with regards to the management of that project, contracts being discontinued, new ones taking over as we speak, Chairperson. The second contract has also left the site. And this has even forced or even just created a situation where the two ministers had to meet, our minister and Minister of Public Works, really to then say, what do we do with a situation where this project is not coming to an end? A very important project in the history of this country. I want to say that currently, Chairperson, as part of trying to find the solution, we have come up with a solution that will see us not just entirely depending on public works to do this work, but us also being involved, more particular our technical team from Program 2 will now participate in each and every stage of this particular project. If there are variation orders that need to be done, our colleagues must actually be part of that so that they can see whether those variation orders are in line with the Public Finance Management Act so that we do not find ourselves in a similar situation. In a nutshell, Chairperson, yes, there is a challenge with this project. We are working on solutions of trying to resolve matters. Now, there was a question about the modular libraries that we reported on. And the question was whether they do have internet connectivity. I just want to say that, Chairperson and another member, that completed modular libraries do provide internet facilities for the public. On average, each modular library will have 5 computers for the public to use. They also provide study space for students. They provide books and sometimes toys for children. And there was also an issue of underspending on heritage projects. And I think part of my response to Sarah Bartman can also be used here, that our dependence and reliance on external capacity has caused a lot of problem for us. We coming way back from IDT, now dealing with matters of DPW, but also we now looking also at our own internal capacity to ensure that we have got the technical know-how on matters of infrastructure development, so that our dependency is not total. And then there was a question there was a mention of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. I think this one was completed. As we speak, Chairperson, we have appointed an outfit that is doing the exhibition. The latest update that we got was yesterday, where they would now want a final sign-off in terms of the storyline for the exhibition, because they would want to start doing the production December, when everything is quiet, and January, because the timeline for the completion of this exhibition is the end of March. So there is progress in that particular area. With regards to the directive that we've gotten from Honorable Van Dijk, with regards to the update on legacy projects, we would request if maybe we could be given an opportunity to present a comprehensive report, but we would therefore request some time to then do that report, so that we do not give information in a haphazard way, but in a much more comprehensive way, where we'll be talking about each and every project, its stage of development, the budget associated with that particular project. Now, with regards to Honorable Kaula, I've noted, and I'm sure all of us as the department, we have noted the concern that she has made, first and foremost, acknowledging that there is work that has been done around Ubabul Tuli and other stalwarts that have been memorialized, but of course, expressing a concern about Amakosi, who might seem not to be in our space with regards to memorialization. But I just want to also assure this committee that there are a number of projects that are in the pipeline, which are actually going to be doing exactly what Umam Okaula is saying. But also there are projects that have already been implemented. One particular project that comes to mind, it's the one on Inkosi Pambata Kamanenza, which we concluded, if I'm not mistaken, in 2015. That project could have been unveiled then, but of course there were some glitches that need to be sorted out by the family. And I'm glad to also report, Chairperson, that early this week, we had a meeting with members of the family, and they assured us that everything has been sorted and that we are then likely to unveil this project. They gave us 3 months, which are of significance and symbolic significance. It's either February next year, June, or December. Then we will be working with the family in just finalizing that. Of course, there has been name changes with regard to some of the kings who have resisted colonialism. I know that when you get to Pretoria, you get through Hoshimampuru, and also there is Hoshimampuru prison. And of course, there are projects like King Cetshwayo statue on the pipeline. Chief Charlie, who might not be known by many people in the country. Also, we upgraded the grave in 2016, coinciding with the centenary of Fort Hare. And why is Chief Charlie significant? It's because that land where you see Fort Hare standing was donated by this chief. And one project that's outstanding is the one of building a statue at Fort Hare opposite the statue of, or the memorial, the Stewart Memorial, which is in Fort Hare. And of course, there are projects, the King Hintsa project. It's one of the projects that we are also working on because the current grave of King Hintsa is actually being encroached upon by the river. So the idea there is to try and move it to a space where the remains are going to be reinterred in a space which is dignified and also which is not going to be washed up away by the river. So I'm just trying to express the extent to which we are very conscious of these matters. I think that the other issues around resistance and liberation heritage project, I think they can be covered within my response to legacy project. And of course, Honorable Dennis, the Sarah Bachman matter, I think that I've tried to respond to it as much as I could under the circumstances. But thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, honorable members, and thank you, DG.
Thanks very much, DG. Can I think on the matters relating to ACPD, Acting DG Lisa Combrink.
Thank you, DG. Honorable Chair and honorable members, I think there were 3 sets of questions addressed to ACPD. The first questions were from Honorable Malomani, and it had to do with issues of language and also the incubator projects supported by the department. With regard to the language bursaries, The question was, what do we provide the bursaries for? So the bursaries are provided for various study areas, which include lexicography, literature, translation, language planning, human language technologies, sign language, interpreting, terminology development and management, and also language study and literature study. So those are the areas of study, and those current bursaries were at University of Venda, Wits University, University of Western Cape, University of Zululand, and at Nelson Mandela University and Northwest University. So that's with regard to the language issues. With regard to the incubator projects, the two incubators that were partly complete in the last financial year were both visual arts projects. The one was an animation project that it had started as a real project, and then it became a virtual project. So in the process of the organizers having to convert and doing it virtually, they had a little bit of problems, and that is why that project got delayed. But the project did then did happen. The other project was an online portal for the creative industries, and it involved capacitating artists to sort of sell their goods and their cultural offerings through the app. And that project had a little bit of problems in terms of the licensing of the app. But after it got through the licensing hurdle, the project went on track. And then the two incubators that were not partially but incomplete. The first one was the National Poet Laureate Hub project, which is run by Professor Wally Serote and his team. And that project had initially involved a lot of physical workshops and events around the country. So due to COVID restrictions, they had to replan and then do things differently. And that project is still underway, but nearing completion. And then the second incomplete project had to do with the area of technical services, where there was technical services conference that was due to happen around technical services and capacity building, but that got cancelled eventually due to COVID restrictions. And then I think another question related to the Western Cape Community Arts Center project that was incomplete. That project was carried over, and it has been, it's now close to completion. And I think the initial concerns in that project, or the initial delays, were pertaining to the implementing agency that was implementing the project. So partly it was also just in general the move to do digital projects, which was really an innovation during the COVID period and a necessity. So digital projects in general were sort of delayed as, sort of people sort of now working in new terrain and trying to complete things online. So thank you, DG, thank you, Chair. I think those were all the issues addressed at Arts, Culture, Promotion and Development. Thank you.
There was just one issue, Lisa, about MGE content. What is this about? Can it be explained? Just briefly.
MGE content, DG, I may not have caught that properly when it was articulated. What I did pick up was some MGE projects that had been incomplete, and that's why I pointed to the digital projects that were delayed in some ways. So I may just have missed the nuance of that question, DG. And sorry, Honorable Chair.
Maybe just to indicate, Honorable Chair, that of course, MGE, as we indicated, it includes the stimulation of demand, the issues of market access, and we've got mainly three bigger programs there, the touring ventures, which includes then people who would like to do their work by moving from either from one province to another, or maybe their programs would like to be taken abroad and they need to then be supported. Public art is about beautification of public spaces. And while we're dealing then with the cultural events, which are just the normal events, and the budget is then broken down from that budget of MGE to cover these three key components. And each of them is to deal with the both. Then there is NAKISA, or the issue of training, which Lisa referred to as incubator programs, to make sure that we've got academies that are supported under MGE for skills and capacity building in the sector. And we then have, of course, these then programs that we then roll out, and we normally use what we call an open call for people to submit applications for these projects. So that is the MGE. It helps then to, as we said, to both create market access, stimulate demand, and create market accessibility, whether it is our products, cultural products and artifacts, as well as cultural services that we need to export to other countries, so that we support creatives. Lokho kuphendula ke uMam Khawula, Honorable Khawula, on the issue.
Chairperson, DG, I apologize. Your voice is too low. I apologize, Chair. Sorry.
Yes, so bengizama nje ukuchaza ke la ukuthi uMGE uMam Khawula nje bebebuzile ukuthi mhlawumbe abantu abanjengobaba uMbuso Khoza ukuze imisebenzi yabo ibonakale phesheya senzani. Lokho kuhlanganisa lento esibiza ngokuthi ama-cultural seasons, lapho sivumelana namanye amazwe ukuthi bona baletha abantu babo la, thina sihambisa abantu bethu baye kulawo mazwe. Kodwa futhi kunalento esibiza ngokuthi-ke i-touring ventures, lapho esibathumela khona ngaphesheya ukuze bakwazi ukubukisa ngemisebenzi nangamasiko nangamaciko ase-South Africa kulawo mazwe. Sibasupporta kanjalo laba bethu bamaciko ekwenzeni umsebenzi wabo waziwe emhlabeni jikelele, nokuthi-ke bakwazi phela ukuthi baphinde babizwe uma ukuthi besebenze kahle. Kulo nyaka njena singakhuluma ngomcimbi omkhulu obuseDubai obizwa ngeDubai Expo, lapho siye sahambisa khona imisebenzi eminingi yamaciko ukuze kubonakale ngenyanga ka-October baveze imisebenzi yabo. Kodwa-ke lokhu sikwenza unyaka nonyaka under i-banner ye-cultural seasons noma touring ventures. And then ngizocela-ke ukuthi ngaphandle kokuchitha isikhathi ngicele uprogram 2 simphiwe bekunemibuzo mayelana nama-federations kanjalo kanjalo. Ngizocela simphiwe ungakwazi ukuthi uthi nje ngamafishane.
Good morning to the chairperson, honorable chairperson, and honorable members of the portfolio committee. I've shown my face. I am going to take a few questions on related to program 2, starting with a question on the number of federations that we support. In our books, we have 68 federations, that we support. However, in most cases, for instance, in the year under review, about 61 managed to respond to all the and submit all the compliance requirements. You note, Chairperson, that amongst those would also include federations such as basketball, which has been in trouble. Sanabo, this Sanabo came through. This number excludes the public entities, which is Boxing South Africa and SAIDS. It also excludes SASCOC and also excludes the sports trust. The other question just to deal with is the issue of how we communicate with the federations, whether we send specific like individual letters. When we send a request for compliance submission of documents, we send bulk emails because it is actually quite a lot of emails federations to send to. We send bulk emails because the documents at that stage that needs to be responded to will be the same. And but when it gets to a point where an allocation letter and the allocation agreement has been prepared, after they've submitted all the required documents, we then send individual emails to those that have managed to submit all the compliance documents. Chairperson, one must acknowledge that this historically has always been a very difficult and problematic area in terms of the timelines for us to be able to transfer. What we noticed, Chairperson, is that what the main hindrance will be the submission of the audited financial statements for most of the sport and recreation bodies. And we noticed that most of them will have their financial years ending. For instance, some will end around August, some end around October, and so on. So in the past, we wrote to all the federations and we asked them, please align your financial year to that of government so that it can end at the end of March end of March of every year. In that way, it will assist in speeding up the process of transfers. Most of them responded to that and heeded our call, but we also then noticed that once they've done that, some of them, their financial years are now aligned to us, but their AGMs will happen later in the year, for instance, as late as October, November. In which case, what that does is that they can only table their annual report as well as their audited financial statements then. So meaning they can't really submit to us because at that point they have not been adopted by their constituency. We have again urged them to move their AGMs earlier in the year so that they can be able to comply much earlier. In terms of our timelines, Chair, before the financial year 2020-2021, our target has always been to at least by June have sent out the allocation letters. At that time, it was slightly different because the department determined the allocations using historical data. We didn't request the federations to indicate what their priorities are at that point. But the system and the approach obviously was revised last year, taking into consideration the COVID-related challenges. And I must acknowledge that, Chairperson, we were trying that approach for the first time, including this year. And it has presented us obviously with challenges, which I believe we are able to respond to. So generally the target would be June, July to have the allocations out to all the federations. And Chair, I should note that we actually saw an improvement in 2019 in terms of compliance, to an extent that by October, most federations, in fact, we had paid to all the federations, which were more than 60 federations at the time. So unfortunately, although those gains were actually reversed with the COVID situation being responded to. Yes, the non-compliance does have an impact in terms of the rollout of and the delays do have an impact in terms of the rollout of programs and projects, which are particularly targeting the athletes. But what we have noticed is that sometimes the federations, some of them would actually go ahead and implement the projects based on their calendar and offset that against their resources. And in the financial year under review, we also noted by and large that most of the federations could not execute some of their projects or most of their projects, which therefore meant that they needed to apply to the department for rollover of funds, which also is something that we had to take into consideration in dealing with the subsequent year, which is the current year. I think on the issue of the community gyms and play parks, Chair, I think there is the request for the list. That list will be provided, Chairperson. The CFO has sufficiently dealt with the allocation to Northern Cape. The other part on the issue of the gyms again and play parks, particularly the maintenance of all certain areas that may not have the parks and gyms, and whether we do monitor as a national department. Yes, Chair, particularly those that we are doing as a national department. There's always a team that actually does on-site inspection of what is being implemented up until completion. Obviously, then the challenge is often post-completion, because then at that time the facility will be handed over to the municipality for management and maintenance. That's where the problems are, and I think we should acknowledge that in that space there are problems which, as a department, we are trying to find ways of making sure that there's better ways of managing those assets and making sure that they are properly maintained. I think, Chair, those were the questions. The other were actually comments in terms of the increase in the number of recreation and sport promotion people participating in that space. We also acknowledge that there is a need for provincial departments to present on particularly on school sport and what is happening in their individual provinces. That was also a comment noted. Chairperson, I would like to believe that I have responded to all the questions that relates to program 2.
Simply, unless I missed something, there was an issue about the 3 program federations who did not submit their reports, and the impact on the transformation, particularly impact on youth and all this. Do you have a comment on that?
Thank you, DG. The 3 federations, in terms of I would like to believe that that relates to the eminent persons group assessment report. The 3 federations were basketball, were chess, as well as Sanabo at the time. Chair, obviously, these 3 federations have been experiencing administrative and governance problems. There is a process of turning them around. Both Sanabo and basketball are back on their feet, and we are assisting them to ensure that they actually respond and submit the necessary documents. I do know that as per our last report, when they appeared, Sanabo has already submitted this year, and basketball is in the process of working on their submission. Chess still remains a problem, Chairperson. The confederation is to convene all the stakeholders within chess to ensure that they convene an AGM where they can elect the new executive in a similar approach as we have dealt with basketball as well as Sanabo Chair. But the implication is that we obviously do not have a picture of what the transformation progress is for those 3 for the period under review. And we're hoping that in this current financial year, as they come back on stream, we'll then have a much better picture. Thank you, DDG. I had responded to the issue of impact on the development. Thank you, DG.
No, thanks very much, DD Chikwatamba.
And thank you very much, and good morning to the chairperson of the committee and all honorable members. I think DG, the bigger one for me has been covered by CFO in terms of the consequent management, but I can just clarify to say with the explanation that has been given by CFO, the question could be why then there is still a question on issues of consequent management. Quickly, I would say CFO was reporting of 62 cases that were investigated in that period. And then there were 4 out of that 64 that remained unattended to. And then outside that, there were about other 6 cases, which made us to go into the next year with about 10 cases that were not allocated. And those ones as well are currently being handled. So I was just closing that gap, Digi, to say then why is there a question when so much has been done? And then on the other one, last one, I think the question was more about the allocation to provinces and how we make them accountable, but with an angle on allocation to the entities and how we're making them accountable for their transfers. And I'm responding to the latter to say with the entities, we do have a compact that details what they are supposed to do, that they should be reporting on. In addition to their plans, we do have a team under entities management that would analyze their reports quarterly, a dedicated team to do that.
in between, we do have quarterly engagements with the CEOs and CFOs. And further to that, we also analyze their plans, but overall, when entities have not performed accordingly, the compact, it gives a framework for us to say, what can we do that could include us holding back on their transfers. But it also includes us supporting them where we need to support them, as they would from time to time make some requests to us for us to support them. Thanks, DG.
Well, thanks very much. Sakio, you will then display the list if you can of the things that were requested so that we are able to respond now, unless the chairperson can advise otherwise. But I would ask that you display the list of the number of things that were asked by the honorable members. And if you don't have to talk, can I respond to the other key issues now that were raised? One, while you display those lists, Sakio, for the members to see.
DG, if I may, I'm unable to do that because I think I'm not allowed by the system. The co-host can do that. So if Lodwick, because Lodwick has the annexure, if he can do that from his side. Thanks.
Okay, we can do that. There was a question, Honorable Chairperson, relating to why are we not meeting the sector people? An example was made of Ms. Ngoma and the 100 police that were there for 5 people. Firstly, I don't have the number of police who were there, so I may not comment on the 100, but in my view, that was far less than that because we looked at the cars that were there. Do we have a problem of meeting with the sector organizations? I think evidence is there unless it is ignored. We have been meeting with the sector organizations, I don't know how many times, and we can display that. So there is no fear nor neither evasiveness in meeting with the sector organizations. What is a problem is when someone comes without any arrangement through social media and making threats of a sit-in, and that cannot be allowed. Having learned that that impacts on very same sector that we're supposed to service. So that was a problem in this instance. That one, the initial meeting where they had come, we could not have had that meeting because there was no appointment and there was no request for us to meet with them. I only got a call through one of them who did not even declare that he had come with that group. And I was in an official engagement in Sentin at the Sasol building with SAFA and Sasol renewing their sponsorship. Therefore, I even responded to him at the time and I told him, if he sends me an appointment, I will join him. I will set up and make sure that we meet with him because he said he would like to meet with me. I am here. I said, where is here? Then he said at our offices. And then they chose on their own volition to stay there until it was Monday. I then, as per my commitment, when that day, on that day of them blocking access to the building, making sure that the department cannot perform its functions, and the conduct by some of those to ensure that they block access to the building. That's an illegal act that should not be allowed. But I came with my whole team of executive. We sat down and discussed what are the issues. We then agreed after that, because then she had given me an undertaking that she will not have a sit-in in the office, because then that would have resulted in unfortunate incident that I don't know whether it would have been permissible for a sit-in to happen. or will then that mean now having a conflictual relationship with them? So I then, with her, Sibongile Ngoma, agreed, and we met, and we had a very strong engagement. By that, I mean, she was the one who was more speaking about what they had come for than us. And we listened. We then responded to some of the issues. But as per her own undertaking that they had not given us any advance petition, therefore then they will give the department opportunity to respond to other issues when we meet again. We agreed to meet again. We set a date, and you are correct, Honorable Member. However, in the meeting, there were indications and mentions of other organizations. And it was necessary that also, because they're raising matters that are sector-wide, we will then have to set a meeting that will be all-inclusive and be able to address the matters for the sector as a full feedback. So when we received requests that we, rather than to make sure that there is preparation and logistical arrangements, and people had been on elections on that particular following day, therefore then let us have a meeting on the 5th. So that then was the decision. We communicated that, and on the afternoon, to say that we are requesting that the meeting be then moved to the 5th to enable the sector feedback. I have exchanged the WhatsApp with her to say I am pleading with her not to come. She then said, no, she will come. I can't go and have a roadblock to stop her from coming, Honorable Chair. However, as had committed to meet with her and indicating that they will meet with Nawe and the rest of the sector, I could not have held a meeting on that day. But the intention was to then, again, meet and just address and explain to them while they were outside. I went downstairs. I asked to address them to say, why are we not meeting on the day? After they had requested that, they then decided not to engage with me. Again, I could not have forced them to meet with me because they then said the reason, among others, was that they didn't want to be addressed outside the building. And I said, I cannot have a meeting on that day because I've communicated with her. So we then indicated that the meeting will take place on the 5th, as per the communication. Unfortunately, again, the act of blocking access took place so that we are not able to access the building, neither to leave the building. This was just a sign of lawlessness that we can't allow. Hence then, the police had to be involved so that we can, of course, be able to leave the building. And that is how then police intervened, was to make sure that the departmental access points are not blocked. So we have, and I do have, an engagement relationship with Sibongile. she can bear testimony to that. And as I've said, I will be meeting with her and SIFSA this coming Monday, because the department has no problem of engagement. And we will continue to meet with the sector. Honorable Chairperson, we cannot serve the sector by failing to meet the sector. It just does not make logical sense. Whether it is on good terms or it is on difficult times, the sector has a right to raise issues. Because if we don't, who then are we serving? Now, the issue raised around the NAC councillors allegedly who embezzled the money. My understanding is that there is a process that
Nantsovele yakho ayifuni uthethe ikugade naxa uvula umlomo. Okay, DG.
Chairperson.
DG, I'm suspecting Usa Cooper Lenja.
Chairperson, on a point of exigency. What's up on?
Yes, sir.
Chair, I was suggesting go to DG Magahold that the questionnaire NAC when we discuss the NAC forensic report. It's a suggestion because we are going to discuss it.
Not the one that you asked the question about it.
No, I didn't ask an NAC question.
Oh.
I didn't ask about forensic. I'm talking about forensic. That I'm not sure. Maybe it's not my question.
Let's wait to hear him because I'm not sure what he was going to say. Let's hear what was the next question that he wanted to reflect on it.
No problem, Chair. As long as we're still going to discuss the NAC.
Yes, we are, honorable members. It's in our agenda.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Don't do this thing, honorable members. I don't know who's calling me.
Chairperson, please, don't let Seppo talk alone. Why is Seppo talking for the DG now?
I don't know. That's what I'm correcting, Honorable Madlingos. And correctly so, you are hearing me, what I'm saying to Honorable Mhlongo. You can't query to me. I've ruled out that Honorable Mhlongo must wait. So I didn't allow that he must speak alone. It's not
point of order,
wrong
Chair.
what we are saying.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable Mhlongo.
Chair, I was not speaking on behalf of DG. I was suggesting English. I said, I suggest DG to hold question of NAC when we discuss NAC. I didn't say he must respond. I think Obama Madlingos must withdraw what I'm speaking on behalf. It's a suggestion for progress sake. It's not speaking on his behalf. I wouldn't do that. DG must account to us, but I was suggesting the DG must hold questions at NAC. That was that. I'm not speaking on his behalf. And I apologize if I'm speaking alone. I was asking you as chair. I've raised a chair. Can I say something? Thank you.
Honorable members, I would love to chair the meeting. I would love that any member, when I've ruled the point that was raised by a member, and I didn't want that I must be assisted. I've answered Honorable Mhlongo. Now, Honorable Madlingos, now, Honorable Mhlongo. Let's not do that, honorable members. We have agenda on front of us. I was handling and correcting Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Mhlongo did what I'm saying. Let's not do this, honorable members. DG?
Honorable Chairperson, thanks very much. So on the issue raised around the NAC Council members, I wanted to say that indeed the NAC have an obligation to act on the recommendations of
DG,
forensic
one not yet. There is another agenda, DG, was still in your, what you call, in your annual report. That's what I was correcting you whilst you were trying to sort the question of the dog. So right now, I'm going to say hold there, and I'm going to check honorable members whether do they have a follow-up questions. I was having follow-up questions. I'm feeling to not to ask follow-up questions. Let me again give to members that do they have any follow-up questions before we must go to the next question in the agenda, which is the one that you want to address us. We're not yet there. Thank you. Honorable members, do you have follow-up questions? Honorable Madlingozi.
Thank you, Chair. I would my question about the progress of that racism allegation of Cricket South Africa. How is it? That was the question I had.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Madlingozi. Honorable Adams.
Thank you, Chairperson. I might not hear when the department responds, but there's one question. What consequence management or intervention is the department implementing to strengthen federations and sporting codes? I thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, all of us, we have an agenda on front of us. You must not blame when we have not finished, but I cannot stop not to allow honorable members. DG, at least these are 2 follow-up questions in order that we must have enough time in the next question in the agenda. Thank you.
No, thanks, Honorable Chairperson. Can I ask if my colleagues have got any comment in relation to Honorable Madlingozi's question, Simpiwe? Looks like Simpiwe have been lost. Honorable Chairperson, the process of the hearings by Cricket SA continues, and we will get a report in terms of their interventions after they have consolidated and processed the report. But we welcomed the fact that they instituted this process so that all issues of racism, alleged racism, can then be reported and investigated, and that will inform the best way on how to read the game, not only cricket, but because racism is something that we know still affects and did affect a lot of other codes of sport. So we believe that this is just a landmark exercise that will help others to follow in terms of dealing with racism in a much more organized and procedural manner, and give opportunity to victims and those who are alleged to be perpetrators. So at this stage, to Honorable Madlingozi, I can say that we will, I'm sure Minister will report once he has got the report in this regard, and then what is being done. But we needed to allow the hearings to be completed. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, DG. The last question, the last follow-up question.
Can I then ask if it's possible that DDG, I think it's an acting CFO, could respond on that one?
Of the consequence management, they did respond.
DJ?
Yes.
Yes, Bongile.
Chairperson, maybe I didn't hear the question, sorry. I had lost connectivity at some point. The consequence management on what, DG?
DG, can you take the question, DG, please? Because we cannot avoid this problem of network.
Chairperson, must I repeat the question?
Please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. What consequence management or intervention is the department implementing to strengthen federations and sporting codes? I thank you, Chair.
Yes, Bongile.
Chair, I was asking for Simpiwe rather than Spongile on this one. If I can come in, Honorable Chair.
Please.
No. Yes, no, the Chairperson has indicated during our monitoring exercise and also the issue of the budgets, when the federations do not comply with the business plans they've submitted or with the expected performance and reports they're supposed to submit, the first port of call is the issue of withholding the funds for failure to implement until they submit corrective measures and required reports that are needed and which then get evaluated. We withhold the issue of funding as we do that monitoring and enforcing compliance in terms of implementing their mandate. Currently, that is mainly really the main thing that we are able to do as to enforce compliance and implementation of the mandate that they have at their disposal for the department. So Chair, that is, unless Simpiwe wants to add anything, if he's still available, because of the network, Chairperson.
DG, unfortunately, Simpiwe has been cut, but I was speaking to him, DG, he is trying to hotspot to come back to the meeting, but he's saying what they have implemented currently is to enforce the federations to align, one, with our year end. Number two, if they do not align, then they'll put punitive measures, whereby it means the allocation that has been allocated or should be allocated to the federation will be withdrawn. If not reallocated to another federation, then at year end, that money would be lost for that federation, because if they can't align and improve to the measures. And again, as already Mr. Mube had said, that they've got people that are dedicated for each federation that is working with the federation, you know, in the matters of review, in the matters of monitoring, so that before year end, they would have assessed the situation and tried to help the federations. DG, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Yes, I was going also to do that follow-up, but because I did hear that you are pleading, you're having a plan that they must align themselves with the timeframes for accounting. Really, if we can emphasize that in this South Africa of ours, the legislatures, the provincial and the national, no one is not knowing when is our financial year. No one is not knowing that the local government have different time frames. So they must try to assist us all. Honorable members, thank you so much for the responses of the department. Now we were giving DG to give us an update, NAC forensic, a special forensic report. Honorable members, you must remember, because there are members now trying to ask me where's NAC. This is about the decision that we took in our last meeting, that the members, they did see the report in the media, and now the members, they wanted that department, which is a department doing oversight over NAC, department must come. They even say the department must respect us, come and tell us what NAC did tell them, or their report. Maybe we would love to hear whether the department did discuss a report with NAC, and if we are thinking that we can call NEC, but now we are correct that first and foremost, the department which is having a role over overseeing oversight on each entity, that each department must report to us, and I will be guided by you, honorable members, if you want now to call NAC. Today I was fulfilling with the office the request from you, honorable members, and each department agreed on that day that they can come and report to us. To you, DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. And maybe I must start with the preface, as the Honorable Chair have said, that the investigation report was done by the NAC after Minister had instructed that they must do so, because they have a properly constituted council. Two, after Minister had got a legal opinion on the matters of conflict of interest that was being alleged by the members who were now on the board and they're likely to benefit from the disbursement of the PESP funds. And that legal report was submitted to the portfolio committee, indicating, and it does indicate, that because these members, when adjudication happened, they were not even members. Therefore, then they had no influence on the issue of their applications being approved. Hence, then the board was left to deal with the matter. Honorable Chairperson, after that, then the NAC had to take full responsibility for appointing the forensic investigating company called Mazars Forensic. They then, indeed, through the chairperson, after receiving the report from Mazars, had to have a feedback to the nation, as this had caught public interest. On the 27th then of September 2021, The meeting, the public media was addressed to indicate that the report has been provided. This was a joint meeting, or sorry, media briefing by the minister and the NAC. This was to serve a public interest because people did not want to wait, not knowing whether investigation is happening and whether it's taking too long and what are the hurdles. So minister had to say to the NAC, do inform the public of the outcome of your forensic. So the forensic report then was made, sorry, then the media dealt with that matter. Thereafter, there was an outcry that the report has not been published or given to the people. Again, this matter has received a lot of public attention, particularly the sector that we service. In some quarters, that there might be something suspicious about why the full report has not been published. So this august house of our honorable members also made numerous requests for the report to be handed over to them as a portfolio committee responsible for oversight. Now, what then happened was that after our last meeting with the portfolio committee, there was then an engagement to see how soon can the report be handed over to the portfolio committee. Then the NAC Council at the time needed to get full legal implications for releasing the report, which contains names of people who might have to either report, account, or be taken through disciplinary processes, but that they need first, as people who are implicated in the report, to be given a fair chance for them to have access to the report and be made aware of the intentions of the council about what findings say about them and what they intend to do. So that report has then been taken serious by the council, and they committed then that they will do everything required in implementing the findings of the report and the recommendations. So this will assist them in dealing with the restoration of strong internal processes and controls, and where members of the council need capacitation to discharge their duties, fiduciary duties in particular, that they will do so to promote good governance within the organization. So the release of the report to the public, I must indicate that this was then the preceding the official commencement of the implementation of the recommendations as contained in the report. So the CEO and the Chief Financial Officer had, as per the recommendations of the report, that there are areas where they flouted policies of NAC, that they need then to be taken through disciplinary processes. Now, Chair, I must start first with what was asked of us, that the committee must receive the report. On Saturday, while I was abroad with Bafana Bafana, it transpired through the email that they have followed everything necessary in relation to engaging with those who are implicated in the report, and they have a legal advice that they can release the report to the public. Upon seeing that, I then wrote back to ask that, can they please, before they release the report to the public, that they first ensure that the report is in the hands of the committee, the portfolio committee. And the chairperson responded that indeed they will do so. However, they needed to make sure that, again, not another day passes by, that the report is in their hands when they have a clear legal advice that they can now do so, taking into account the demand for the report made public. They then committed to do so. I communicated with the acting director responsible for entity oversight, requesting that even I'm away can have personal touch and engagement with the entity to make sure that the committee receives the report. I even said, even if it's an hour difference, but it has to be in the hands of the committee. They indeed did so, albeit within the same day that they later then published this report on their website. Then what are the findings then in the report as it was analyzed, saying? Is that one, there were several irregularities pertaining to the management of the PSP. Among them, the issue of financial mismanagement, the process irregularities, and the lack of adequate oversight. And the report also said all funds have been accounted for at the NAC, that the newly appointed council members as of the 1st of January were all cleared of any wrongdoing. The report also said that the findings of the state law attorney stating that newly appointed council members whose organization had applied for the PSP could not have been conflicted as they had not commenced their appointment at the NAC at the time of applying and completion of adjudication. The next issue was that the report did, however, identify conflict of interest in respect of some former council members who, according to the report, contravened Section 8, subsection 5 of the NAC Act by participating in the PSP processes and failing to declare their directorship in companies that applied to the PSP. The former council members disregarded their own resolution of the 19th of September 2020 by allowing 5 council members to actively participate in the evaluation of applications, thereby contravening the NAC Act. Further, they failed to meet deliverables within the timelines of the PSP. Further to that, the inability and failure to take effective and appropriate steps to prevent irregularities in the adjudication process, including the irregular spending. Well, remember, honorable members, that this irregular spending, among others, the adjudication process had an overshoot in terms of committing funds they don't have and issuing letters to people. So that failure to provide financial management oversight regarding the implementation of PSP within the allocated budget of 285 million. You will ask why 285? is because the 300 million allocated, there was a percentage of 50 million that was for implementation, which roughly we call it a management fee. That's why then the actual budgets that need to go into the pockets of the creatives is 285 million on the side of NAC. So this resulted in a commitment of an amount of 428 million rands. This was more than double the allocated budget. So there are no funds that have gone missing on the PSP program. Further, was that then the two most senior officials of the NAC had to be suspended, that were suspended then, were found to have mismanaged the process. And currently the disciplinary process is underway, and the DC committee has already commenced having appointed the initiator and the presiding officer. Other officials will then be given an opportunity to respond to allegations against them. And depending on these outcomes, further processes will then be undertaken. At the high level, Chairperson, that is what the report findings and recommendations are. And this is the initiatives. These are initiatives that NAC have started to undertake in order to fully implement the recommendations coming out of the forensic report. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable DG. I'm suspecting it's this committee. We wanted to get this report in the way that we are reporting. I'm suspecting we wanted this. Honorable members, now this is the time for engagement. May I note the hands? Honorable Mhlongo, Honorable Van Dijk, Honorable Van Dijk, Honorable Adams, Honorable Malomane, in that order, honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. DG, I'm not going to speak on your behalf. I'm going to ask you questions. I've never spoken on your behalf. And I will never do that.
Wrong, man. I barely returned.
Spoken department, I've never, and I don't like members who are speaking on behalf of the department. Just making it clear, I've never spoken on your behalf. I usually ask members not to speak on your behalf.
No, we have resolved that, Honorable Mhlongo. We corrected, Honorable
I'm moving on. I want it to be clear. Now, DG, you must answer. DG, NAC, how much did they use actually the legal cost, especially for the ESP? And DG, don't you see that it's a wasteful of expenditure by the new appointed council, especially what consequence management is not taking place? DG, list of all forensic report or investigation that the NAC and the department has undertook since years to date. Chair, this forensic report, it's uncalled for us to receive it from the media. And I think the DG tried to explain, but I'm not convinced because the report, I wanted it before it went, on the first day when the minister went to the media. The first day I've asked for us to have the report, and the minister did not respond to us, or to me, even to you, Chair, because I've copied you on that email. I wanted to ask in detail the following question. Who is Mr. Arendse? What is Mr. Arendse's role? Because I read the report. And what is the relationship between Mr. Arendse and the NAC? And can the DG maybe respond, because this is on page 4 of the report. What is the response from the council after they've received all recommendations of the investigation? And it is vital that we must know why were the limitations on the service provider. I think there were limitations because they've raised that there were limitations on the investigation, who to interview, who must not be interviewed. Why there were limitations? Could I know who is Mr. Arendse? What vital role did he play in adhering or outcome or the directive or the forensic report? When will the disciplinary hearing take place for all the recommendation of the consequence management process for Mr. Arendse and all other subordinates? During the investigation, Chair, I think one of the things that we must know, section 1118A of the protection disclosure hearing, what happened to that? Because I think the process was not clearly defined for the company appointed. And the forensic report of the NAC was released to annexure that state incomplete release. Why was the reason which would incomplete release? This investigation, it states on page 7, it says, when you read it, annexure E, F, G, and A, it says the particular interest of the sector and the annexure are not dealing with individuals referred to each application, especially with ESP. What was the reason all about? And I think the media alert has stated clearly on those issues. And it is uncalled for. I believe with the NAC must come and account. I know they've accounted to the DG and the department, but they must come, because how can the previous chairperson raise issues? Because the previous chairperson raised several allegations and whereby they're not even in place or on the report, because he was put on terms by the minister, but to date, there's an email that is circulating regarding the former chairperson of the board, regarding the same amount, 300 million PESP funding. Now the fiasco regarding the 285 vis-a-vis the 48,000, the difference. Why is it so much for administration? Why didn't the department do it itself? Why didn't the NAC do it itself than to appoint or to allocate money for administration purposes, so to say? And can they share with me what are those administration purposes when they share with me? Thank you for now, Chair. I'll have a second bite.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Van Dijk.
Thank you, Chairperson. I also want to thank you for the feedback, but I also want to agree with Honorable Tsepo that it is really unacceptable, despite the apologies that we as members receive this report through the media and after we've written to request this report. One of the recommendations in the report is that the NAC needs to get legal advice on the 35 workers or the previous workers and council members who mismanaged the 300 million relief funding. Has the NAC, can the DG maybe reflect on this? Has the NAC started with this process, and will there actually be steps taken against these people? If will there be time frames for this? I also want to know what is the reason that there were so many challenges regarding the distribution of this funding more than 8 months after the project was supposed to end on 15 March? And why did it take 2 months to release this Mazars forensic report? My last question is that regarding the 5 previous council members who evaluated the PSP applications, even though this is against the National Art Council Act 56 of 1997, and they earned salaries of more than 500,000, also paid with PSP funding. How will this be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Dijk. Honorable Adams.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair, and thank you to the department for the presentation. Chairperson, my first question on the forensic report. How will the National Arts Council ensure consequence management of staff employed temporarily for the PESP, and is National Arts Council considering reporting the transgression to law enforcement agencies? What was the hindrance in providing the remaining memorandum of understanding? And what action will be taken to officials who have failed to supply the investigation with adequate information? And how does the department plan to manage future programs without outsourcing critical administration functions to enhance accountability? And my last question, Chair, what are the implications of not having the memorandum of understanding by the forensic investigations of the 6 project managers, not noting that they have been paid? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. Honorable Malomani. Honorable Malomani.
I think she struggled with network, Chairperson.
Honorable Malomani, for the last time. Sorry. Can I give it a...
Chair.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes. Yes.
Chair, I'm in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let me also welcome the presentation of the report. You know, this report, it gives us the light of what has happened, of the issues of the maladministration. And as the DG was presenting, I can hear that there is something that has went wrong. We need to agree that we also needed the report, but got the report, maybe it was not in a good manner because it was firstly maybe on the media. But on that issue, I also will say, because they're not only accounting on the portfolio committee, they're also accounting to the public itself. All of us, everyone was waiting for the report, even also the public. But what I would recommend is that, Chair, because this issue, we need both parties to be in the same room, in the same meeting, so that when we discuss this thing properly, and I can see that they're saying the investigations or the disciplinary hearings, there is something that they are busy with, the NAC from the 16th, which is made nearly 2 days after now we're in the committee. What I would like to ask the department is the oversight, that as they will continue to do oversight in this learning incident, because PESP, what has happened, it is the first time that we're dealing with it, its own challenges. Here it is, that is in the NAC. What is the department intending to do with the doings of these issues of PESP NAC? The other matter that I will want to say to the department is that there was a briefing to the department, and then I just want to find out, what did NAC said? Are there any timelines that they said they will, when are they going to implement, and when are they going to finalize the implementations of the recommendations from the report? The other thing that I want to say is that if there are anything that is happening regarding the report, can the committee be given a signal or something that this is happening. So a continuous report so that we can be alert of what is happening within this investigation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Emma Lumani. Let me take this opportunity also to thank the department to come and fulfill our request. Honorable members, sometimes there's no one who can pat us at our back. I'm referring to this when we didn't want to have our Easter Monday with our families, took the oversight to go to all these areas because of this money and what we received and what we went and discussed and put in this Parliament of South Africa is exactly that the findings are here in front of us today. I'm just raising this, that sometimes when we are not seeing eye to eye in the contribution and in the seeing things, but we must just sometimes remember what we've recommended as this committee. Those recommendations are just official in the Parliament. When I was reading and looking even today in the information that were given, I'm not doubting our own oversight. When the AG was giving us their own intention and of telling department they must go and strengthen things there and then, some of us in this meeting have said, what you are telling us, it's confirming on what we've done through our oversight. We must know that when it comes to oversight, when it comes to look at the parameters where we must do things, we are always doing that. These things sometimes that some other members, they will feel that we are toothless committee. It can be. And I've seen it when the AG findings were similar to of this committee. I mean committee, not individuals. So I'm supporting what all honorable members are saying, that the department must monitor, and some of us we are happy that there are those who are already not with the NAC, because sometimes until they will try to maybe to prove or to challenge the report, if the indication that saying that there were some rotten potatoes amongst the other people who were doing their work without doing what those who allege to these things. I'm taking this opportunity to thank honorable members and to thank you, DG, in advance. I wanted that when you responded, after your responses, I will close the meeting accordingly. Thank you so much, honorable members and the DG. We far beyond our located time, but I'm happy that we have dealt today with this report, waiting for further information. Thank you.
Can I ask DDG Chikotamba if to have any responses, and Spusiso, and then I will come in. Thanks.
Thank you once again, DG.
And to honorable members and chairperson of the committee.
Just a minute, Honorable DG. I'm getting a note from Honorable. I'm suspecting he's experiencing maybe network, because in front of me, we participants, I'm not having the hand of Honorable Madlingos. Now he's indicating that I must not close the meeting before himself wanted to raise a question. Just a minute. As I'm speaking, even now, there's no hand of Honorable Madlingos. Honorable Madlingos, that's your chance. Maybe it's the problem of network. Honorable Madlingos. Honorable Madlingos. Honorable members, we are seeing that I'm trying. I can't get a voice from Honorable Madlingos, but seemingly has got a problem of network, because he wrote aside in my phone. I will give him, even if the department has round up whatever questions, if by chance it can come whilst we're still in the meeting, I will give him the chance. Thank you, honorable members.
Chairperson?
Honorable Mhlongo? Yes, Honorable Mhlongo.
He wrote a question on the on the Zoom chat, unless the question was, Chairperson, why was the NAC allowed to release the report to the public before the committee? Chairperson, this is not showing respect to the committee. Chairperson,
the
conduct and the warranted investigation.
Listen, Honorable Mhlongo, you were cut off, even your good self. Two questions they did notice. The third question.
WhatsApp.
Oh, can the office, can you read for the department the questions of Honorable Madlingos? Because to me, it was just an indication that I cannot close the meeting without his questions raised. Can the administration read the questions for Mandisa? Do you have those questions? I'm seeing your hand.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Yes.
I can just read them as I respond. The first one, which is a question, is about why NAC was allowed to release the report to the public before, I think, releasing it to the committee. The other one, Chairperson, is that conduct not warranting investigation is thus not showing disrespect to the committee. Yes, I think, Chairperson, taking from the opening that was done by DG on this matter, it is clear that there hasn't been, I would say, approval as given by the department to release the report. So we do want to agree, Chairperson, as we've seen it elsewhere, that this is an error on their side. But to say, is it warranting an investigation? I think I'll respond to that and say, yes, they must account to say, how did this happen? And then going to the other questions, Chairperson and members of the committee, I would sum up a response that says, we left with the NAC when they were busy analyzing the report, taking counsel from their legal team, which tells us now that that counseling from the legal team has been finalized, completed. Hence now there is even recommendation they are implementing of saying they can release the report to the public, which they have done. And now that it is confirmed that they've finished that process, our expectation equally is that they give us the plan, because out of that analysis, they were going to come now with the implementation plan and on each recommendation. Further to this, Chairperson, my plea, hoping that DG concurs, is that this is a process that is going to take a bit of time in terms of the implementation of the recommendations. So perhaps the committee can allow us to get this plan and share it with the committee, and then make NAC responsible and accountable by making sure that on a monthly basis, it's updating this plan, and we find a way of feeding through these monthly reports to the committee, otherwise tying up to their quarterly report to us. But to make sure we don't wait for long, we will give them to say quarterly, monthly, they must give us progress. And if the committee can just agree with us on a process to feed to it on the monthly basis report. Thanks.
Thank you, DG. DG. Any other intake, DG?
No, thanks very much, Honorable. Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. The issue of the report being released almost simultaneously has indicated that the intervention was that they rather send the report first to the committee, and this then happened at, on the 13th of November at 2026. I then thereafter also had to check, then they delayed, and then they released the one on the website between 8:45 and 10:50 on Saturday, same day. Unfortunately, it was the same day, and the committee members and the secretariat might not have been able to distribute the report before this time when they released it, which I have indicated that it was a bit unfortunate, but they had felt that they do need to release the report and not sleep with it, because then the question would have been, as you hear the line of question by Honorable, is why delay? Why delay? So they just had to delay a bit for the public, even if it was a few hour difference, unfortunately, to the honorable members, and they might not have been able to see the report as soon after being sent before being released. But those were the just time differences, 22:06 and the other one at 20:45 on the same day. Then this report was distributed. On Aranze's a question on who is Mr. Aranze. He's a continuity member who is currently a council member. And then as was indicated by DDG, that the council is implementing the recommendations, and therefore then they will be able to tell us what are they doing. But the issue is that there should be a recouping of this money, and because in terms of the NAC Act, they are apparently not supposed to have been remunerated, and therefore then that is what needs to be cleared on this matter. But the NAC, when they come, they will give further detail. But this is a current council member. On the legal fees, according to the report by NAC, is that they have relating to the PSP is at an amount of 1.8 million rand that they had to involve in the legal processes around the PSP. And then the issue of the timelines is that they will be drawing up the timetable, but they've already started with the implementation. And as DDG Chikwatamba have indicated, once we get that outline of the implementation, now that they have finalized the analysis of the report, got legal opinion, how to deal with the matters, then they would be able to provide the department, as that is what Minister always asks for, so that we can monitor against that a plan that will tell us whether they are addressing all the issues. So I think, as recommended by some of the members, that is what will happen, that when they come also here, they can be able to provide these issues of timelines. But from our side, we will definitely follow up on that issue now that they have a clear guidance from the legal people on what to do with the report. And then the report, is it incomplete? According to my understanding, this is a full report that has been released. If there is anything incomplete, I'm not aware of, and why their email or their website would say that, maybe they can explain, but my understanding, this is a full report that has been released. Now, of the 5 panelists that have been asked, the issue is that 3 of these panelists are out of the system, and there is 2 that still remain, and they will still be, according to the recommendations on how they should handle this matter, they will still be pursued in terms of if they have benefited unduly in this process. Why the management fee? The answer there is quite clear, is that they needed to have the capacity and create that capacity to handle the issue of the disbursement of funds was not coming from their normal line function of what we transfer to them. This was an additional responsibility with clear timelines that they needed to implement, and therefore then they had to put up systems, processes, as well as people to handle and manage this process. And that is in terms of our MOA with them around the process indicated that is why then the issue of the management fee was needed for them to be able to implement the project. And then the question on the issue of what then is intended or department's oversight on this matter, I can assure you that we, on all the PSPs, as I reported previously, is that we are having a process to monitor almost on weekly basis the reports that we get, so that they report against the intended targets as well as the outcomes and the jobs created and progress made generally, and the expenditure that we have has been incurred by these entities as they implement the PSP. This is not only done in relation to NAC, but with all of them. And they will then get those reports and check whether the money is being used for the intended purposes. On the email that is circulating, I may not comment because I've not seen such an email on my side, but relating to the former chairperson. But if the honorable member has such email, such WhatsApp, not email, I will appreciate that honorable member shares with me. Then if there is anything that one needs to do, we'll then act accordingly. The lessons learned is quite a number of them. As Honorable Malomane had indicated, we were doing this mammoth task for the first time with a highly compressed timelines that were given. So it's a number of lessons we have learned, both from the planning process that implementing such a project requires planning, and there was not inadequate time to do that. 2, we had to use what we call a risk-based methodology to look at what would be the potential risk as they do submit their commitments as well as their MOUs in the execution of this project. But 3 is that there is a NAC and the NFVF were mainly identified on the basis that they've got experience of disbursement of funds in this area, as they are our funding agencies. And therefore, then it's important that we continuously work with such entities, because National Treasury would not allow us to go out of tender to appoint an agency. Would have cost even more just to implement this. But thirdly, or fourthly, is the challenges that the sector faces around having access to funding because of compliance issues, which we believe we must share with the sector. And this was more daunting a task in relation to compliance with SARS matters. SARS had a lot of SARS required things that were needed for them to comply as per the PFMA requirements. And most of the sector were struggling with these issues of compliance documents. And FAT 5, we have learned that the need out there outstrips the available resources. There is a greater need for the sector to get more funding in order to be supported based on the number of applications and demands that they are having. Even today, when you listen to what we are fighting over between us sometimes and with some in the sector, it's mainly really about scramble for resources, that we have limited resources. We can't support everybody. However, the need out there is great. COVID has taught us those lessons, that there are a number of challenges that the sector is facing, like any other sector, but that we need to find a way of working with the sector in order to share that which is little but can be used to support the sector. The economic shutdown, based on the face-to-face programs of the sector, clearly had a direct impact, particularly on the performing arts sector. So, Chairperson, there is a number of things that we have learned around the implementation of the PSP. And we do need to then look at how do we use that into improvement, business improvement processes among ourselves. So the last question, Chairperson, that has been raised, I think, is how will ANC ensure, NAC ensure that they are able to not repeat the same mistakes. I think based on the lessons learned and the reviews, Chairperson, I'm sure they will be having an improvement plan, for instance, in terms of ensuring that their own act is not contravened by their own members. Because it's important, as they've indicated, the issue of training and the onboarding of council members to understand what the Act of NAC say and what obligations and responsibilities it places upon them. So, Chairperson, I think the number of other questions that have been raised relate more directly to the NAC having to assist the committee to do its proper oversight. And therefore, then it might be helpful to take into account suggestions by other members that where both of us can be here to assist in providing clarity on these matters. Honorable Chairperson, I request with the honorable members to rest my case.
Thank you, DG. I'm suspecting today you overworked yourself. Even your voice tells us that you overworked yourself. Thank you, DG. With your colleagues, I'm suspecting even the administrators, they're just leaving us not to tell that our term expired. But what I'm happy about is that you did come and we've raised what we've just raised, the gaps, and as this committee, I'm suspecting now the ball is with us to invite the NAC, which we are going to be part of that meeting, as there are questions that they were related to the NAC. When I was opening this point, I was trying to tell the members that we didn't say that we want both NAC and the department. So when time comes, as a committee, we are promising to do that. I'm seeing a hand of Honorable Mhlongo, but we are beyond injury time. Honorable Mhlongo, be brief to the point. Honorable Mhlongo.
Thanks, Chair. No, just only NAC must come. Thanks, Chair. Not only NAC must come, even the company that we've appointed. This legal, the company that was investigating this, the company that was appointed to investigate or to come up with the report. Maza. I think the name of the company is Maza. I think they must come and report back to us. I've got a question for them. Because there were no limitation. According to what I've learned, there were limitations.
I'll consult with our legal advice about the added people that we must call. I will do that. DG?
Yes, Chairperson, ngicela nje mana angangifaki amagama emlonyeni. Akushoyo manje ukuthi mina ngithe there were no limitations. Akuyona inyani ngesixhosa. So bengicela that I did not say there were no limitations. I didn't touch that point. I said in terms of the full report, my understanding that it's a full report that has been released. So ngicela ukuthi ubaba Joman angixolele kulokho. I never use the word no limitations.
In that point, let me take this opportunity to thank all the members of this committee for their patience because they wanted to do a thorough oversight. Let me also thank DG with your encourage that as this committee, we do appreciate whenever we are calling you to come and report to us. You always do so. Keep it up. Our role is to do oversight to you as the department, and as well emphasizing that in these entities, you must do likewise where there are gaps. We are promising that even out of the DAG's report, you are going to put the systems to meet those gaps that they have been identified. DG, now I'm closing this meeting.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. On behalf of the department, we appreciate the guidance and the instructive questions we normally receive so that we can help improve how we deliver to the sector. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, go well for your weekend, behave, put your mask, sanitize, keep your distances. I'm seeing that you are no longer keeping distances. All of you were having rallies, and I've seen that some were not even putting masks. Bye-bye, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to everybody. Nice weekend.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Mhlongo, you are very naughty.
Mhlongo, yekelenti yakho man.
Yekelenti yakho uphume kuboy manje ungene ku honorable Madlingozi. Ampa Mhlongo.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.